And we are live. What's up, everybody? Another
Sup,
week
sup,
of
sup.
our wonderful happy hour of Wakanda whiskey, Blerddom, and Bourbon. Mark couldn't make it tonight, so I upgraded my associate to the man who knows no introduction, but I'll introduce him nonetheless. King Richard the Panther Hearted, aka Richie Rich, aka the Dollar Flipper, aka Mr. Steal out the dollar bin, aka OG Rich.
Uh, what's going on? What's going on? How's everybody doing? We in here one more game, bro.
I
One
don't
more
have anything
game.
particularly planned tonight other than just talking about comics, man. I mean, that's what we black comic lords are supposed to be about.
That's
What are
right.
you? What's
All about
our favorite phrase? What's on your pull list?
on your fullest.
Followed
Yes,
by
indeed.
what you reading?
That's the biggest thing. What you read? Because
What you reading?
yeah, man. So, um, I guess let's talk a little bit of news. Okay. Shout out to paperbacks and soundtracks. And the reason why I bring this up is because this week we're getting, or next week I should say, coming up, we're getting the what ifs starting Miles Morales.
Right.
And when I heard Amir and Kay talking this week on their new podcast about the books that they were reading, their reads of the week, one of the books that Kay talked about was a Marvel uh, 2-in-1, which is
Yeah.
basically the Spider-Man books. That what they would do is they would link Spider-Man with another Marvel character, and they
Hmm.
would tell a story.
Right.
And just to show you this, there's nothing new under the sun. Um, I guess this is what Marvel is doing, except they're using Miles Morales. But they're using Miles Morales not with B or C or D list characters, but with A list characters.
Right.
And while I'm not a fan personally, this is just Rich. I'm not a fan of this, and the reason why I'm not a fan of this is because I feel like Miles Morales, even though he's been around 10 years, in my opinion, is still a character that is that is that is still has potential. He hasn't reached his apex in terms of who he is as a character. He's a well-known character right now, but I still feel like there's more for Miles Morales to do as a character, to be solidified as a A-list character. Because, and the reason why I'm saying that is because Marvel is clearly dragging their feet with this character. They know that this is a character that can sell. They
Hmm.
know that this is a character that a lot of you know comic book heads and casual fans cut for. But why hasn't his character shown up in a major movie? Why is it that after 10 years of comic books and 10 years of fandom, all we got is a cartoon?
And
Um,
they literally just had a Spider-Man movie, which could have easily
yes,
introduced him in the manner in which he was introduced as a multiversal character.
yes. And I have to ask myself the question, if you could take Miles Morales out of the equation, the first book that they're coming out is What If Miles Morales Became Captain America? What if Peter Parker became Captain America? Would that work? I don't think it would. And I'm bothered by that because I feel like they're using Miles and they're not really investing in Miles. I heard someone say recently that I shouldn't and I take it, they didn't say me personally, but I felt like they were kind of talking to me because I wrote about this. But it was as if they were saying I shouldn't be as harsh when it comes to that because the guy, somebody's getting paid, they're creating art. Okay, but I can't help but think it's low hanging fruit. And so they're doing this with Miles with Captain America. Then they're gonna follow it up with Wolverine, and then they're gonna follow up again with the Hulk.
Right.
And so while that is okay, eh, am I gonna run to the comic book shop to go get those books? Eh, I'm not a Miles Morales guy. Maybe you are, but I really don't see the appeal for me. And see, to me, Miles Morales is more marketed to guys like myself who aren't Miles Morales fans. Does that make any sense? Versus
Yeah.
you probably have every Miles book that's been made. So
Most
what do
of
you mean?
them.
What do you think on?
I pre-ordered the first issue, the What If Miles Morales, because I thought it was a one-off thing. Because it was solicited 2 months ago. So I did
Right.
not realize they were doing an entire series of what if Miles Morales is also going to be Wolverine and Hulk, etc. I have no intention of buying the Wolverine and Hulk books. When I saw that this wasn't just a one issue, what if Miles Morales was Captain America? What intrigued me was that his partner appeared to be his girlfriend Starling dressed up as Falcon. So I was like, well, at the end of the day, at least you have a book where Miles is with his girlfriend.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a strong proponent of Black super love. So
Right.
you have two Black superheroes who are a couple about to be in a book together. I was like, at that bare minimum, I'll buy the book. But I did not again, this was back as I pre-ordered it 2 months ago, before I realized it was going to be multi-issues. So that takes things out of context, into a different context, I should say. They're clearly using Miles's celebrity to sell some books. It's a money grab. There are a lot of characters they could have done a what if on. But they chose him because he's popular. It's frustrating because it's a double-edged sword. They chose him specifically to do this book because they knew it would sell because Miles is a popular character. Right. He's one of Marvel's most popular characters. And yet, as you pointed out, the brother ain't really getting any love. I was very disappointed, I guess would be the most political way to say it, that Marvel, as I said, literally did a movie about the multiverse involving Spider-Man, and your most popular multiversal Spider-Man character who makes you money was not included in the movie. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Like when Genki uses his little ring thing to open up the portal, there's a meme that's been circulating where as he opens the portal, you see Miles and the other cartoon version of Peter Parker through the portal. A little thing like that, just we dialed the wrong portal. A little scene like that would have said volumes. You wouldn't even had to have him come out of the portal and be with the whole three Spider-Man. Just a glimpse to acknowledge that he's there beyond Jamie Foxx saying, it'd really be cool to have a Black Spider-Man. That line almost alienated me because it's like you recognize that there's a Black Spider-Man. You recognize that there's a viewership who know that there's a Black Spider-Man who are sitting through this movie for 3 hours who've paid their $15 in hopes of seeing him, and you, in essence, kind of nag them, poke them by saying, man, I know somewhere out there there's a black Spider-Man. I mean, it was almost like they were making fun of the fans.
Hey,
it was damn near disrespectful.
Yeah. Well, Paul, when I wrote my blog about the Captain America, Spider-Man, What If, I don't think people. I think a lot of people thought I would jump in the gun, and it wasn't that I have anything to grind, an axe to grind with Marvel. I just know that we've seen this before. Not what they're actually doing with Miles, but we've seen this in terms of Disney. Let me hit another franchise to kind of make my point. Remember when the trilogy, The Force Awakens, first trailer hit?
Mm-hmm.
The very, very first trailer. And we saw Finn taking off a stormtrooper helmet. We saw a black man. Then we saw later in the trailer him holding a lightsaber.
Right.
Blurs everywhere were losing it.
Right.
and they played Finn like a B-side. And I think what we have here with Miles is something similar. Shout out to Brianna Forbes. She's in the building. She says, to be clear, they don't care about characters or comic lovers. They care about money. Money streams and merchandise make money. So they will go for the trendy cash grab. And she goes on further to say that she feels the same way how they treat Lunella, which, by the way, okay, there's going to be a Lunella and a is it Miles?
Yeah, it's Miles. It's Miles and Lunella.
Yeah, Miles book coming. I guess it's a one shot, I'm thinking. But it's behind the scenes. We were talking, and I made this a point that I was watching. Shout out to Paperbacks and Soundtracks. My man Kay was in one of his reads of the weeks. He was talking about a Marvel 2-in-1 story, which basically was a series that Marvel had where they would put Spider-Man with a D, A, B, or a C, D, CD list character to try to bolster interest.
I like the way Kay phrased it too, that he phrased it as Marvel would pick a character in a book that's failing.
Yes.
And they would put them with their A-list top selling character, Spider-Man, to help garner more interest in that character.
Exactly. And so it's interesting that they're doing this with Miles Morales because, like I said, they're doing this with Captain America. They're doing this with Wolverine, and they're doing this with Hulk. Yeah. Now these are A-list books. These are A-list characters. He's not, second CD. This is not your second tier, third. These are first tier characters. Right. And so we do know, and we can smell the crap that Marvel is dishing. This is a money grab. Mm-hmm. And so I do think that they will have merit. And they don't hurt Miles Morales, but I don't necessarily know if it helps Miles Morales either. Because again, go ahead.
I was gonna no, go finish your thought because I was gonna say something. Go ahead.
No, I was done.
Off the top of my head, I could think of a better storyline for the same premise. What if Miles Morales was Blade? Not he was born from a vampire bite. What if Miles Morales had his same spider powers, got bit by a vampire, and somehow had some type of immunity, and in essence became Blade, a vampire hunter, right?
Right.
That's a more interesting story. What if Miles Morales what if Miles Morales got the powers of Dr. Voodoo,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
And then he appealed to the god Anansi.
Mm.
And he became, in essence, he tapped into the mystical energies by becoming, you know, the Sorcerer Supreme or something like that.
Right. Interesting in
And
that you
type
bring
into
up
his
that
spider
he's
tunnel.
a yeah.
That's a
These,
much that's an interesting story.
yeah.
It doesn't
It's
take that much
definitely
thought to come up with these premises.
yeah. It's definitely here's the thing. You bring up these characters, Blade and Dr. Voodoo, black characters. And here he's doing he's these they're what if he becomes this iconic white character? That's basically what Wolverine that's what Captain
Right.
America, that's what the Hulk is.
They're
And
using
so,
him to put a black face to white characters, which, quite
boy, you know
frankly,
what?
when you talk about what Kay talked about, the purpose of the Marvel team up stories
Yeah.
was to help promote characters that weren't selling well. Wolverine, Hulk, and Captain America don't need help in their sales. They don't need promotion. But Dr. Voodoo, Blade, these characters, they need some help in their promotions.
Yeah.
It's a damn
It's
shame.
unfortunate, man. It really is. And it's I don't know. It's they're the main reason that I am the back issue guy that I am. Because
Yeah.
again, it's like, come on, guys. What are we doing here? I'm gonna tell you, I was the Avengers 53 that just came out that you and Mark talked about. I was I can't say I was mad, but I was miffed. And the reason why I say that was because Avengers was on my pull list.
Mm-hmm.
I took it off after the Black Panther Khonshu or Black Panther Moon Knight story arc. I was done with it. I had no interest really in the Phoenix Force story arc. I just was
Right.
like, I'm kind of done with it. I dropped it, and so I never did pick it back up. And then this issue comes out of the blue, and so I was mad because I'm like, man, that's a key book, and I missed the first print on it. And there's no way I'm gonna be able to get it unless somebody, decides that they want to flip it or they want to sell
That's
it.
all right, dude, because they got a second print coming out, and the
I
second
know.
print has the actual suit on the cover.
Yeah.
If that has a low print run, because they didn't really release the FOC on that until kind of late, so a lot of people may miss it. So that might actually be a more valuable book in the future. So don't feel too bad. I'd get that one.
Yeah, I am. But it was just one of those things where it's like, that I should pay $3.99 for that book. I'd have had it, or $4.99, because these prices at Marvel keep going up for whatever reason. So, but either way, you know what I'm saying, I wasn't happy that I missed out on it.
Right.
And for me, it's one of those things where there's not a lot of stuff at Marvel right now that's just really drawing my attention. The Moon Knight books, I'm enjoying.
Yeah, Moon Knight's really good.
Yeah, Strange Academy, which is getting ready to end or go on hiatus for a while. I don't know
Did
if
you read that
Scotty
last
Young.
issue?
I did. I got it here.
That was a good issue.
I haven't read it yet, but that was probably my most favorite Marvel book at this point. I mean, what I'm saying, I'm enjoying the Black Panther run, of course. I guess we'll get Black Panther next week, but not too much outside of that. You know what I'm saying? The mutant side of the mutant verse of Marvel, I'm kind of frustrated with, because the books that I was reading, I did drop Wolverine. They canceled Way of X, which I was irritated they did.
It's kind of coming back though in Legion of X.
Well, See, that's the other thing too. Shout out to all of you guys that went out and spent $5.99 for the Sabretooth #1.
That was actually a good book. I know. Look, I know you're criticizing me on it. That Sabretooth #1 was a good book, dude. You don't want to hear that, but it was a good book.
I should not have to pay $6 for a #1, especially.
And it's written by a brother too, Victor Laval, the guy who wrote Dark Blood.
Yeah, which just ended not too long ago. Matter of fact, Victor Laval, quiet as it's kept, has been writing some fire stuff up here lately, man. So shout out to him. I hadn't picked it up. I hadn't even had a chance to read it. I need to go and I'll probably go read it digitally.
Dark Blood needs a sequel. I'll tell you that about the final issue. Yeah, I got a mail call. I don't even know what it is.
Yeah, man. Speaking of new books, mail call books, whatever. I talked about some books last week. Are you reading Magic Order 2?
I have bought it, but I haven't started reading it yet.
Okay, you need to catch up, bro. Get a late pass. What about Man of Black?
Look, I get a lot of comics, man. I bought that. I haven't read that one yet. I just got that last week.
Yeah. What about New Masters?
New Masters I did read. That's an excellent book, man. Yeah. That one and Land of the Gods. Have you read Land of the Gods?
Yes. About the sister with I guess she's albino.
Yeah. Those two books, man. Look, if you're a black comic collector, you got to get those books.
Yeah, no doubt. And for those of you, tried and true, Shadow Man #6. So, Shadow Man's a pretty good book. People download on. Valiant titles are not on everybody's radar, but I definitely recommend Shadow Man. Now, I do want to gripe about something. I griped about it for like 30 seconds with Derek when we did our Nita Hawes.
That was a good video too, by the way, man. Y'all really broke it down.
Yeah, appreciate it. How you gonna put this is cover A of Marvel?
I already know what you're gonna say. Go ahead.
How you gonna put Night Thrasher on the cover of a book with no story?
Bro, it's even worse than that. They did the same thing last year. He was on the cover last year, and not last year, 2 years ago, and he wasn't in it either. They tricked me twice with one of my favorite black characters.
I'm gonna tell you, I could have went and got all the other variants or chosen other variant, but I chose this book because it had Night Thrasher on the cover. Because I thought we were going to get Night Thrasher. So
shout out to
I was a little.
Who's just made his deal with 50 Cent.
Yeah, man. Let's talk about that real quick. First of all, Zero, which
I'd never heard of before this, by the way.
Exactly. So we 50. Shout out. Listen. Let me say something about 50. Now 50 Cent, or like some people said, Super Bowl, he's a whole dollar now. He's a whole dollar now. 50 ain't been to the gym in a minute. I ain't mad at you, bro. I ain't mad at you at all. Keep getting your money. But shout out to 50 Cent, man. 50 has made a lot of bread. Power.
Power universe now.
Yeah, man. That whole thing is incredible. I don't know if everybody's a Power fan or whatever, but if you're not watching any of the Power shows, you are missing entertainment. It is phenomenal. So shout out to 50 for that. But my man has decided to dip his toes into the superhero genre. And what I love what he did, he's taking an obscure character that no one had heard of, except for a few people, and is going to develop and make a show or a movie.
Yeah. And the story's even better than that. He took an obscure character that DC put out and had let lapsed, from what I understand, so that the rights to it went back to the creators.
Yeah.
Chris
That's the
Cross
other
and
thing.
who was his other co-creator?
Not sure.
It was written
Christopher
by
Priest. Christopher Priest.
Priest,
Chris
right?
Priest. Yeah, Christopher
Complete
Priest.
black team. Let the rights revert back to them, and then he picks it up. 50 is a hell of a businessman.
Yeah, yeah. So, and to do that, and you get to black creators, like you said, that's pretty dope, bro. That's the kind of stories and kind of things that are the wins, if you will, that are a direct result of Black Panther and the movie, man. Because let's just be honest, without that movie doing what it did and black comic book heads championing that movie and even to this day with recast T'Challa, that wouldn't be possible. That wouldn't happen. So again, shout out to 50, man, for doing that, because that's money that he doesn't have to do. That he's showing me, if nothing else, that he is committed to doing things for the culture, and he's committed to doing things that are not just the norm. Because he could have just did something simple like, man, let's try to do a Miles Morales movie. He didn't want nothing commercial, so he really got, and then he got one of the GOATs in Christopher Priest, one of the best writers of comics. So you can't be really mad at that. You really can't be mad.
I am so happy to see those two brothers, two veteran brothers, get their due. Yeah. That's look, and 50 could be doing other things. He doesn't have to go into the superhero genre, but for him to recognize that there's a market there, and to go invest in that, mad props to him, man. I mean, I talk about all the time. You got a brother like Tyler Perry.
Mm-hmm.
Tyler Perry, billionaire, who has his own studios down in Georgia that are so good, so well done, so well funded that it is the unofficial studios for Marvel. Yeah, all these films that we're getting from Marvel right now, the majority of them are filmed at Tyler Perry Studios in Georgia.
Yeah.
So
it's amazing, man. So,
he has the ability to make these films. How that brother has not decided to contact the Milestone dudes and be like, hey, let's make some movies. I got the setup. I got Marvel quality setup right here.
Problem is,
I'm gonna
tell you the reason why I think that is that's just not his wheelhouse.
But it's his wheelhouse for Marvel.
Yeah, because Marvel is just writing a check, and he doesn't really have anything to do with it other than write the check. They rent space, he gets the bread, and I'm not mad at it. You know what I'm saying? But that's just, Tyler Perry. Listen, Tyler Perry don't want to have nothing to do with Blerds or whatever. Ever since Boondocks.
I don't know if that's true, man, because Tyler Perry was in the he was in a Star Trek movie. He played an admiral in a Star Trek movie. So clearly he has some interest.
Do we count that?
Yeah, because he did it because he's a fan. He's a Star Trek
fan. Yeah. Okay.
I mean, I'm just saying that he has some interest in some type of blurred type of stuff.
Right. No doubt. I ain't mad at it. Shout out to Tyler Perry. Hey, why don't you holler at your boys? Come get an interview with the Black Comic Lords. We'll hook you up. We'll make you famous.
We'll move him from famous to infamous.
That's probably what it is. Oh, so anyway, let's shift gears, man. So, what books did you get, bro? Let's look at check out your
this book that I just got in the mail. It's Wonder Woman 297.
Hey, what's the significance of that?
The significance of this was the appearance of Batwing, the first Batwing.
Okay.
Charles, what is the guy's name? His last name, I forget his last name, but his first name is Charles. It was interesting in this run of Wonder Woman, they had a bunch of backup stories. What I've noticed, because again, you're more of a DC guy than me.
Yes.
I grew up on Marvel. I just sort of late in life discovered this DC comics in terms of retroactively reading them. And I
Right.
noticed that DC oftentimes have B stories. They'll
Right.
have like a backup story in many of their books. I thought
Right.
that I think it's a pretty good way to do books, and as we talked about earlier, promote lesser known characters.
Right.
I thought that's a good way of doing it. And so they were promoting at the time the Huntress. If you look at the corner here, it's got the
Mm-hmm.
Huntress. So they
Right.
had a backup B story for several issues with the Huntress. The Huntress in this iteration, and it's all confusing for me when it comes to DC because you guys have so many crises and you never know which generation or which verse that you're in. But apparently in this universe, the Huntress is not just the daughter, is not a daughter of the gangster who decides to fight crime. She's actually a lawyer, a law
Right.
partner. And one of her attorneys is a young brother named Charles, who several issues before this, they showed him as a kid meeting Batman and being inspired. I'm sorry, not meeting Batman, meeting Wildcat,
Yeah.
and becoming inspired to become kind of a superhero. At
Okay.
this point in this story, it's believed Batman is dead. So he takes up the mantle, not as Batman, but as Batwing. No
Okay.
powers. He just
Yeah.
gets a suit, he gets gear, and decides to fight crime. And one of the reasons why he does so is their law office is actually attacked by a criminal, a villain, supervillain, by the name of Carnage with a K, a black supervillain. And
Right.
he grabs the dude by the throat and holds him up in the air. And at that moment, he's like, you know what? You know, I should become a crime fighter because this dude choked me out.
Right.
And I feel some type of way about it. So he decides to become a crime fighter.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he basically kind of jumps in and tries to save the Huntress when she's in a bit of a pickle. And that's how Batwing was born. So this is one of the first issues of that storyline there.
Cool. Cool. Cool beans. You know. Sometimes comics can be an addiction, and like all addictions, they have their. I take it back. Addiction is not good in no facet, but some addictions have their virtue.
Yeah.
Last month, I think it was. I kind of. Well, I didn't kind of. I torched Green Lantern #10 for good reason. Shout out to Jeffrey Combs.
I remember. I believe the term "put a flamethrower to it" was the exact words that I used when I criticized you on that.
You did.
No, bro, no. I'm just telling it like it is. Nah, dude, you took a whole flamethrower.
Listen. It's like the wind, brother. I have to go with the wind. So anyway,
you were like
Green
Rick
Lantern
James on a couch with dirty boots, man.
Yeah, Green Lantern #11 came out.
Yeah,
and that's Teen Lanterns on the cover.
And tell me what you thought about it. Go ahead, I'm waiting.
Better than 10. It was better than 10. I'll say it's better than 10.
Do you remember the words that I told you? I said, Rich, you got to give it a chance, man. You got to give it a chance. No, man, this was good. This is garbage. I'm going to need DC to step up.
Listen.
I will say 11 was better than 10. I admit that.
Yeah. I look, let me tell you something. 10 almost made me drop this run, drop this from my pullets. It did. I mean, it was just that terrible. It was very disjointed. And so, I didn't see, that's the thing about me. See, when I do lives or when I do my blogs, whatever, that's therapy for me. It has to, because I need something. I need something without breaking something. I'm not going, listen, your boy has over 7,000 comics in his collection. And I've only shredded one book in the history of my comic book collection. I've only shredded one book. And the rest of this other stuff or whatever, I put it in a bag and board, I throw it in the collection, and I forget about it. Right. And I wasn't saying that I was close to doing that. So instead of shredding the book, I decided to, well, let's just vent for a minute and then we'll get over it. So when this showed up in my box, my pull box, I was like, okay, you know. And so they Jeffrey Thorne, I don't know if I have actual influence in the force, but he must have heard. There's a bald head Bama down in Texas. Is just he will not let me sleep. I got to get this right. So but it was a lot better. It was a lot better. So James, I know you in here, bro. So hey, he says keeping Green Lantern to number 12, and then after that he don't know. So, but like I say, 11 was better. It was definitely better than 10.
I admit 11 was definitely better than 10. And I agree that 10 was a little confusing.
Bizarre. It had, I'm gonna be honest, Paul, it had Clans of Bellari feel. I'm like, what?
The problem is with this Green Lantern run, and I've said this from the very beginning. First of all, I love the run simply for a few reasons. One, John Ridley. Two, the fact that it's the blackest Green Lantern run we've ever seen. 3 black Green Lanterns in one book. But the problem has consistently been that they've been on 2 separate storylines and 2 separate missions. And what made 11 so good is that they finally brought them all together. That's what I wanted to see. When they said, hey, there's a new Green Lantern book, John Stewart is the head of it. And by the way, bonus, Sergeant Mullen, Teen Lantern also going to be in the book. I was like, cool, I'm about to see 3 Green Lanterns of color interacting with each other, and you don't see that. One's out in deep space, the other one's on a blown up OA. They don't even have their powers. It's like, man, that's not what I wanted to see. What I wanted to see is these 3 Green Lanterns, working together and taking on a big bad, which is what you saw in 11. It's like I had to wait 11 issues to see what I wanted to see when I first heard the book was going to come out.
Shout out to Jeffrey Thorne. He
I said John Ridley. I meant Jeffrey Thorne.
Yeah. Jeffrey Thorne, we listen, Jeffrey Thorne for writing King in Black Panther is gonna get a pass. It's kind of just because and this is how I liken it to. I liken it to, say, a head coach or a superstar player like LeBron James who wins a title in Cleveland. Okay, guess what? LeBron, you can go to Miami again, you can go to LA, you can go to wherever. But because you did that for us, I'm going to applaud you. I'm going to support you just because you did that. So he gets a pass. He almost got passed up. Messing with my emotions, but he gets a pass. So, again, I'm glad I didn't decide to cut it off or whatever, because 11 is the payoff. Funny how that works. But yeah, so we'll see. But with some other stuff.
Now we got to juiced up John Stewart. Look, one of the things we talk about when we talk about these legacy type character type things. Mm-hmm. First of all, I don't believe John Stewart to be a legacy character. And anyone who says otherwise is, well, wrong. Because the Green Lantern is a core. It has always been a core.
Yeah.
There are several human beings that have been Green Lantern from Earth. It's just a police force. Green Lantern means cop, basically, space cop. Yeah. So I don't really consider John Stewart a legacy character at all. But branding wise, Hal Jordan is the one that most people think of in the mainstream community of who they think of when they hear the term Green Lantern. The fact that we have to refer to John Stewart as John Stewart rather than Green Lantern is indicative of that. I mean, Hal Jordan gets all the branding by DC, unfortunately, whereas a lot of people who watch Justice League cartoon, the only Green Lantern they know is John Stewart. They don't know anything about Hal Jordan. So I think this is a tremendous opportunity to give John Stewart his own name, because he has powers without a ring. He has quote unquote ascended.
Yeah. James says the art is not consistent. Yeah. The backup story was more interesting than John Stewart's main story. Number 12 was the last in the story arc. John Stewart isn't a legacy character. Hal Jordan isn't half as popular.
Right.
Let me say this. I think Hal Jordan benefits from writing. I think that the reason why people, Hal Jordan is a popular Green Lantern is due to the writing. I mean, this guy's had Jeff Johns. I think Grant Morrison has written Green Lantern. But I do believe it's more to the writing versus, him just being a popular character. Because you're right, the cartoon that people know, Justice League cartoon, they know John Stewart. They don't really know Hal Jordan, which is funny though, because they did do a Green Lantern series. Mm-hmm. You can see that actually on HBO Max, where Hal Jordan is the main Green Lantern.
That was actually a good cartoon. That was
it was, and they brought out the Red Lanterns were the protagonists, or the antagonists, I should say, in that particular cartoon story. So, again, it's one of those things, man. I don't know. I really don't know what they could do, because guess what? I don't know how long this run is going to go. It's been decent overall. I look at issue 10 as a hiccup, but unfortunately, Western civilization and comic book fans are "what have you done for me lately" type bunch.
Right.
So, it may not go longer than what it is, because I remember early on when this run started, I've said this, one of my LCS guys was like, man, that Green Lantern is not selling. And a lot of people dropped it when the last writer, which I do believe was Grant Morrison, was done with it. But it is what it is. Speaking of writers, bro, my man Amir hit me in the DMs recently and let me know who the next Batman writer was going to be. And it hurt my feelings.
John Ridley's not going to be writing Batman anymore?
No. John Ridley's going to still be writing Batman. That Batman he's going to be writing. No, the main Batman story.
Oh.
Main Batman story, Joshua Williamson is writing it now.
Right.
But
not bad. I mean, it's not as good as Tinian, but he's all right.
But they have piqued my interest again, because they are getting Chip Zdarsky.
Ooh.
Chip Zdarsky is going to be writing Batman.
If he can do with Batman what he did for Daredevil, good Lord.
Ooh. Lord have mercy. Y'all think y'all sick of Batman now. But I was telling to people last week on the live, though, it's like, listen, it would be DC spends more money and resources on Batman than any other character.
That's 40 to 45% of their rosters is Batman related titles.
Yes. And here's the reality of it. A lot of the Batman stuff is good. It's not trash. A lot of it is good. And like I give you example. The Batman the Imposter. 3 issues. The trade is already out on it. The trade is already listen, that book is no more than 4 or 5 months old. There's a trade for it already.
Yeah.
That's how good the story was. And so that's just one story. There's literally a dozen Batman stories available. And so I'm not even talking about John Ridley's Batman, which is fire, by the way.
Yep.
And I tell people, if you're not reading John Ridley's Batman, you're doing yourself a disservice. Because
let me point out something, because I mentioned this to Mark earlier this week. Because a lot of people got turned off with the Future State and the Second Son and stuff like that. It was admittedly, it's kind of a slow burn to get to where the point that we're at now. But I encourage anybody who's watching this video, if you've been remotely curious about the next Batman character, don't worry about Future State. Don't worry about Second Son. All you really need to use as a jumping on point is I Am Batman #6. Start with I Am Batman #6 and go from there, because that's a new story arc. Here's the setup. There's a new Batman. He's the son of Lucius Fox, and he's in New York. That's pretty much all you really need to know.
Yep.
Start with I Am Batman #6 and tell me that's not a good issue.
Yeah. I remember, though, back when they did the Future State stuff, I told a lot of y'all back then, I said, this character has got legs.
Yeah.
This character's not going nowhere. And here we are, like you said, the Future State stuff, Second Son stuff. We're in a 3rd volume or a 3rd story of this particular character. Very new character. Okay. And I'm not here to convince anyone. I'm just saying that if you don't enjoy a good story, then I don't know what to tell you. Go. I'm not gonna say that. I was about to say something real rude, but I would just tell you that it's a good story, guys. It's a good story. It's not cheesy. It's not a pandering story. No. It's a real story. You know what I'm saying? So, I know somebody, what, I'm not going to go there.
I know exactly what you're about to say, and don't do it.
No, I'm going to just say this. Our motto here is read the comics. That's my advice. Read the comics. Because if you read the comics, you might actually enjoy it. So that's all I'll say about that.
Yeah. Yeah,
just read the comics.
Is when you get these criticisms about, well, I'm not going to read that because I don't support legacy characters and that type of foolishness. 9 times out of 10, the people that are saying that are people that haven't actually read the book. And what's moreover, when these books are written by us, I mean, do you seriously think these Black writers haven't had an earful already about the whole legacy issue and they're not cognizant of it and they don't address it? They are, and they do. Brandon Easton addressed that in his Mr. Miracle book. John Ridley is addressing it in his I Am Batman book. Yep. He said it's directly in #6. He's like, yeah, I don't care. Well, you're not Batman. No, I am Batman. And he's like, well, you don't kill. And he takes off his little face mask thing. Do I look like the Batman who doesn't kill to you?
Here's the funny thing.
Interesting about that moment. He weaponized his skin color, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
You know how they say that, our skin color gives us the impression to some people that we are adversarial, to put it politely.
Mhm.
So he weaponized his skin color, took off his little face mask, and said, "Do I look like the Batman who won't kill you?" Or something to that effect.
Yeah. Well, you know, this is really nothing new. If
Yeah.
you go back and you read, if you go back and read the old, we were talking about John Stewart a while ago. If you go
Yeah.
back and read the old John Stewart stuff when he was first introduced, there's a book where John is kind of taking over, and this guy notices him, and he says, you're not the real Green Lantern," you know. And so it's like, well, what makes a character authentic, you know? And so you can have that discussion, but I don't think that you win. You know, it's like so many people um, get caught up in the idea of, okay, well, we need original characters, and I get that.
What up,
I really
Premier?
do.
We were just talking about you, bro. Welcome.
I am an advocate for original characters, but not
Yeah.
at the expense of not embracing what's available.
Hmm.
Because in my humble opinion, first of all, there's nothing new under the sun.
Right.
So you can call something original, but chances are, and especially in comic history, whether we're talking a character like Black Panther or whatever, there are origin stories or origin characters that influence that. So there's no such
Lyman.
thing. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. That's one
Waku.
character. I'm just saying. So
Lothar.
yeah, all of these characters, they're not. There's nothing new under the sun. And so, you know. And then here's the thing: when someone tries to offer you something new, why is there such a resistance? Because again, it's like, because guess what? If a character like, say, Icon,
Yeah.
you got some people that don't mess with Icon because they think he is nothing more than a iteration of Superman. Okay, if that's what you want to do, if that's what you want to go with, then fine. You know, never mind it was written that it was created by a black man. Never mind that it was created by a black imprint. Never mind none of that. You don't want to mess with him because he thinks too much like Superman. So it's like, well, what do you want? What do you want? Do you want original characters, and what kind of story do you want them to tell? Because again, none of this stuff is all the way original. Everybody's taken from somebody,
Yeah.
you know. So
Let's deal with that question you just asked. What type of story do you want? What type of superhero? Well, I want original character who's influenced by ancient Africa, and he gets his powers from the Orishas, and he goes and he fights racism and crime in the urban centers of America, and he represents for the people. That's an original character. Well, bro, there's like a dozen black characters that actually
already.
fit that bill. That's actually not very original because there's quite a few superheroes that do that, bro.
No, no. And here's the thing too: the characters that you listen, Original Man by Alonzo Washington. Okay, original character put out by a black man, checks all those boxes, and yet where is Original Man? So the fact that we say we want original characters, why isn't Alonzo Washington still a household name today? I'll tell you why. Because when he put out his product, only so many people supported it. Period. We can go down the list of original characters that are out there. You know what I'm saying? And now here's the other thing too. You know what I'm saying? You want a black character, you want a black person to write the character, whatever. That's fine. If that's what you want to do. But don't come to me and tell me this, and you don't even show me. Tell me if you know somebody that I should be up on or whatever. Then you should make it your business your mission to share that information. But we have so many people that are fickle in this industry, in this genre, in this little thing that we don't. Let's say a character like let's talk Black Sands for a moment.
Okay.
Now Black Sands just got a little. They're getting a little
Shine.
mainstream love.
Yeah.
They're starting it, but this dude has been doing this since like 2016.
Yeah.
Okay. We talked behind the scenes, and my advice was to you was go download the app.
Yeah.
And what I wanted more than I wasn't going to tell you what to look for on the app. Just go download. Just see what's on it. It's literally dozens and dozens of original content that you can read for free.
The app is dope.
Black creative.
The app is absolutely dope.
Yes.
The marketing plan is excellent. The app is original. I've never seen a comic book app like that.
Yes.
The way that it's set up is set up to entice you to read the content and want more.
Yep.
Brilliantly done. And their cross marketing is brilliantly done. The fact that they've done a movie, they downloaded a good portion of it, a good introductory clip on YouTube, which is where I became familiar with Black Sands. That's all based on their comics. And then you realize that there's a lot more to what they have in their stock on that app. That more that I realized that was there.
Yeah.
Really well done app.
Yeah. And my thing is, it's like, but my point bringing them up was at some point when they become mainstream.
Yeah.
You're going to have people that are going to be hating just because they're mainstream. Because right now they're a cult following. They got a little love, and now they're gonna be able to do some stuff in the pop culture space. That they will be scrutinized for that, and it'll be one of those things where, okay, if Black Sands does outside of their normal niche, then they'll be criticized just for that. Because in and of itself, the Black Sands entertainment story, this guy Godoy has put together a phenomenal story. He's got like 8 or 9 books as far as his core story arc, right? But then he supports other creatives. He's done something that we talk about all the time, but we've been kind of like limited in doing. Shout out to Delta Dogs, Millennium Comics. They're like number 3 on the app.
I didn't realize they were on that. I guess I didn't get that far. I didn't realize Delta Dogs is on there too.
They're on the app. They're like the number 3 most requested story or comic book on that app. And it's one of those things where you have to like really search this stuff out before you actually, I guess, judge it before what it is. Because I think that what happens with us is we see Marvel and we see DC, and they are the quote unquote standard. And so we decide, it's like, you know what, we want to do something different. We need to do something different. Okay, well, Black Sands is different. But we have this mentality that we're not sure whether or not we can, 1, trust it, 2, want to fully invest in it, and 3, do we really want to leave this other stuff alone? Does that make sense? We've had Marvel and DC for so long. Now you see something that really can actually be in the room. I'm not going to say challenge, because that's a tall order, but be in the room with them. And that's really all you really, because if you can get in the actual room with them, then you can really start to make a change, or you can really start influencing. Because guess what will happen? If Black Sands becomes very, very successful, it will cause Marvel and DC to up the ante and have to really, really produce real good content. Because again, it's about standards. And we're talking about, let's say, for example, a Christopher Priest or a Marcus Williams decides to really want to do something in terms of on their own, which they what they are doing. But let's say that they connect with Black Sands, become and Christopher Priest comes a writer on Black Sands. Okay, you got a guy that has been an editor at Marvel. You got a guy who's wrote one of the most popular Black titles ever, Black Panther. You got a guy that knows how to write cross genres or whatever. He's written on Vampirella. He's written, Quantum and Woody. He knows horror. He knows comedy. He knows superhero stuff. He knows it all.
Yeah.
Okay. They get someone like that on their radar. We were talking about Miles Morales earlier. I don't know if you follow Marcus Williams, but Marcus Williams has a character that he created called Brown Recluse, which is a black female spider, drawn very well. And I'm thinking to myself, man, Marvel need to holler at my man, because Miles, one of the problems that Miles has is his rogues gallery is not really good. He needs a real big rogues gallery to push him over the top. If they ever give him a real rogues gallery that's significant, that's just germane to him, it's over for Peter Parker.
Right. I also think he needs a new name. I mean, beyond the Peter Parker thing, if they were to kill off Peter Parker and just let Miles be Spider-Man for a while, I don't know if Peter Parker would recover from that. For one,
they're not going to let that happen. They're
not going to let that happen because they're too afraid of their old time Peter Parker friends, the fans.
Bro, they clearly did send a message when they didn't put him in the movie.
Right.
That was bothersome to me.
That's fear. That's fear, because he would take over the movie. People would be like, whoa. We want more of that dude.
Yep.
Yeah, but we got Tom Holland. We got Toby. Yeah. The black kid. That's who my 6-year-old is clamoring for, because he's cool.
Yeah.
And
let's think about the picture of the little girl that went viral in the Spider-Man suit.
Right.
Stuff like that, what I'm saying? You can't pay money for. You know what I'm saying? Right. I mean, it's priceless. And so all of this appeal that they have, it's like they have these black characters, they don't know what to do with them. They don't know how to really.
Miles needs a new name apart from Spider-Man. My personal favorite, obviously, is going to be, he should be Anansi or something. I mean, I just want him to be something other than Spider-Man.
I mean, he could be, but again, I don't know if Marvel's going to do that, because from a licensing standpoint, they've kind of invested into this character, and that he's going to be just Miles Morales. But I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying. I just know that
I'm tired of the black heroes having to go with their government names rather than the superhero name. John Stewart, Miles Morales, to some extent Nubia. Like, they don't get to have the superhero name; they just get the government name.
Yeah.
Can I have an extravagant, flamboyant, flashy superhero name for my character?
Yeah, well, mantles speak a lot and say a lot, but I don't know if that's going to happen with those characters. I think, see, Mark brought something up a couple weeks ago when I was with you guys. He was talking about Steel. and that at least still has his own name. He's not Superman.
That's
He
exactly my
he
point.
he you know, and so because he's still, he has a identity. He's not in Superman's shadow.
Right.
He's a character that stands on his own. And
Or Luke Fox has the name Batwing, not Batman. Batwing. He has his own unique name. He's part of the Bat family,
right.
but he has his own unique name.
Or the Signal,
Right.
he's not a
Exactly.
Robin. He's a meta-human. So I mean, there are instances where they do legacy or they do characters the right way. Shout out to, matter of fact, man, there's a video I'm going to recommend you guys go watch. Blurred Without Fear. That dude there, man. I
He
want to be
cranks out.
that dude when I want to be that dude when I grow up. Shout out to the Blurred Without Fear. But he did a video on Amazing Man that was pretty amazing. He is a legacy character. He's legacy character done right. Because the first Amazing Man is a black man.
Yeah.
And he has two grandsons that take up the mantle of Amazing Man. That's legacy done right. And it's a DC character. DC have all these characters and they don't know what to do with them. And he proceeds most of the characters. He's one of the oldest characters there is, because even though he was not, his first appearance is in a book that is quote unquote modern. His All-Star Squadron, his book is actually from the 40s. So chronologically, he's one of the oldest characters that there is. And yet, hardly nobody knows about Amazing Man. Which is, shout out to spaces like ours that help us to discover these characters and guys like Blurred Without Fear and others who make it their business to talk about these characters that are obscure, these characters that don't get a lot of shine and a lot of love, just because, man. We can't talk about diversity if we don't really dig into what's already out here, what's available. And, that's the thing that is a stickler.
Your boy, Reggie Collects did a really good video this week on diversity and comics.
You know what? The diversity video.
Diversity video.
I feel like it was very vanilla. In my opinion.
Dude, it's Reggie Collects. I mean, he's not going to go all in. I love the dude, but look, let's face it, he's not going to go out of his way to and look, and that's not me trying to disparage the brother whatsoever, because his fan base, his subscribers are very broad, and I'm sure, as he indicated, he got a lot of hate over the very vanilla presentations he did on diversity and characters and is wokeness killing comic books, I think was the story, was the title of one of his videos he did a week or so ago. Mm-hmm. And he immediately said in that wokeness video, because I watched it because I was offended by the title, he goes, look, I titled it that because there's a certain sect of people who feel that way genuinely, and I wanted to bring them in to the conversation. And then as you actually watch the video, because I was messaging you guys, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, what's Reggie talking about? Is wokeness killing comics? What's his brother selling out? Like, what's going on? And when you actually watch the video, you see that he was using the title to bring people into the conversation and actually genuinely discuss the topic of this reaction and labeling of quote unquote wokeness in comics and the feeling from a certain sect of people, not us, that wokeness is killing comics, which is really just a way of saying all these brown and black folk in my comic book are killing comic books. I mean, let's keep it 100.
Yeah, I mean, I applaud the brother for having the conversation and not being afraid to get a little criticism.
Yeah,
on him.
Because he
I
didn't have
just
to do
felt
that.
like no, he doesn't. He doesn't. He does very well for himself, just doing what he does. I think um, here's the thing about Reggie. Reggie is someone that I admire. I've had conversations behind the scenes with, and he's given me some advice on content and things of that nature. And while I don't think I'm the brother's best friend, I do consider him an ally more than anything. I do think that the conversation that he had was very vanilla, but I think that he is to be applauded for no other reason than to approach the conversation. And he brought in an academic to have a conversation with. So shout out to him for doing that, because like I said, didn't have to do it. One of the things is that comics is enjoyed by a lot of different people. And the one white guy that he had on there that discussed the wokeness in comics made some very valid points.
He did.
Could not refute anything that he said, which is funny to me because a lot of the things that people hold against comics, we have a tendency to agree on. There's another content creator, Young Ripper 59, who is very, very, very controversial. Hates wokeness in comics, hates race swap, he's gangster with it. He is unapologetic. I mean, some people call him a coon or whatever. I respect the brother for his views. He did a debate with Bird Without Fear, and it wound up being they had more in common and they agreed on more stuff than they disagreed. So having the conversation is very critical. One of the things, like in our space, I remember that was years ago, not years ago, but about a year or two ago, brother was asked a question. He said, "Can black characters do content, or can they tell stories outside of race? Does race always have to be a factor when it comes to black characters?"
That's a very good conversation.
And a lot of people lit him up for that. It's like, come on, y'all, really? And so while it's not something that you run away from, it's not something that you run to. I know that the take down the white man story trope is a yawn for me. I'm just, listen, I lived in the 70s when real black superheroes like Jim Brown and Fred Williamson and Pam Grier were taking down the man. You know what I'm saying? I didn't need comics. I had the 70s exploitation movies to show me that. I don't necessarily want to read about that.
Don't forget my boy Dolomite.
Dolomite too. Way down in the jungle deep. So, but we had all of that. And so it's like you see today's things, whatever. So you want him to take down the police. You want this superhero to do this. I get it. It's okay. But why tell that story? Tell a different story. You talk about a Nazi. A Nazi is a fascinating character in that he is a part of being quote unquote a African god. The mythology, most let's just be honest, most black people don't know nothing outside of a Nazi. I got a book in my library I can show you right now. That's about this thick, full of African folk tales. I think a Nazi is like one story in that whole book. So the mythos and folklore stories are vast, and me and Herschel used to joke about, what I'm saying, we get tired of seeing superheroes with, cornrows and an ankh. We're much bigger than that. We cover that. but we're a whole lot more than that. We're not just that. You know what I'm saying? It's like being pigeonholed, that you have to do certain things, what I'm saying, to be appealing or whatever, to tell a story. It's like this shade moment coming up right now. Shade moment in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All of you Lord of the Rings fans that were clamoring
Hold on,
for
pause. The following statements by Richard Wright do not necessarily reflect the opinions and the stances of the Black Comic Lords, Black Superheroes Forever, and all of their related affiliates and entities. Please proceed.
Yeah.
Had to give my legal disclaimer.
Go ahead. This is my opinion. All you Lord of the Rings folk that were clamoring for some black faces in these stories, in these Hobbit
Other than the
stories.
ogres, you mean?
Yeah, I guess.
There were black people in Lord of the Rings. They were the ogres.
You're gonna get some black hobbits.
Black elves.
Some black hobbits, some black elves. We're gonna get diversity in this. Listen, and here's the thing. I'm not mad at it, but I'm not clapping, I'm not applauding it either. Because I grew up with Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings is not a movie that I saw like everybody else back in the early 2000s. No, I remember Lord of the Rings from when I was a kid and watching the cartoons and then reading the books.
Right.
The Hobbit. That story. J.R.R. Tolkien's original tale. So I'm not impressed by any of this. When you try to apply diversity where it doesn't make sense, which I think is in this, because this is a story about Celtic European people. Okay. Now, black. Hold on. I'm gonna get there. I'm gonna I know that there were black people that lived in Spain and they were the Moors and they ruled Europe for 700 years, but they weren't no friggin' hobbits. They weren't chasing dragons. Okay, they weren't stealing. The Hobbit is about a little short dude named Bilbo Baggins.
Okay.
Who goes and steals? Who goes and listen? I'm keeping we. I know we swim, Paul.
I gotta tell you something. I gotta tell you something. I don't want to crush your feelings on this, but hobbits and dragons and elves, they're not real. It's all fantasy. Okay,
I know,
it's fantasy.
but that's the point. That's the point, though, Paul.
That's my point. Is that it's all fantasy, and in fantasy, you can fantasize that these people look whatever way that you want. It's just a matter of, I don't want to use the term racism per se, but a myopic perspective and a self-serving visualization that has limited and not allowed the cartoon you saw as a child to have black faces in it.
Okay. I have a question.
So that's the whole point, is that like for me, I'm, in addition to being a comic collector, I'm also an unabashed blerd. So when it comes to like fantasy and sci-fi, I grew up on all that stuff. Star Trek, Star Wars, Battlestar Galactica, The Hobbit, all this stuff. I've been into all that stuff.
Right.
And what's fascinating to me is, when you watch I'll give you an example. You watch the original Star Trek back in 1960s, late 1960s, and they showed Klingons. They had all these actors, and they painted them brown, right, to be Klingons. And then when the show came back, Star Trek: The Next Generation in 1987.
Yeah, they made them lighter.
No, they didn't make them lighter. Somebody said,
some that were lighter. Yeah.
Somebody said, instead of painting white actors brown, why not just use brown and black actors? Yeah. And it was like, Well, in 1966, this is 1987. But in 1966, this is 1987.
Mm-hmm.
We're allowed to use black people on television now.
I agree.
And so they started to make as Klingons black people and brown people. It made a lot less makeup too, right? Their lead character on the show, they picked a black man to play the Klingon. And they started to make on Star Trek Star Trek Voyager. Let's do a black Vulcan. But wait, Vulcans are white. Why? They're on a planet that is very hot. It's close to the sun. That's why it's called Vulcan.
Okay, I got a question. Okay, I'm gonna appeal to your nerdom. Could Tarzan be black?
Who?
Tarzan.
Can Tarzan be black?
Yeah, can Tarzan be black?
Yes. If you're doing a reimagining of Tarzan, because let's talk about, if you were to say who is Tarzan to somebody, right? Someone to say who's Tarzan, you would say, well, Tarzan is a rich guy, a baby who was found in Africa, whose rich parents were sailing a sea and were on a jungle hunt somewhere in Africa, and the parents got killed, and the baby that they had, this privileged little baby, was raised by apes.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when Tarzan was originally written back in what 1930s, was it, by Edgar Rice Burroughs, somewhere around then? When it was originally written, when you talk about a privileged rich family, you automatically, it would be white, right? Historically, it would be white for the most part. If you were to reimagine Tarzan in 2021 and say, let's do a modern version of Tarzan, the rich, privileged family doesn't necessarily have to be white. If
how well would that go over though?
Well, let me put it to you this way.
No.
I love the Tarzan debate because I've talked about this a lot. How well would it go over? What makes more sense? That a pale, white, unmelanated person is raised by apes and respected by all of the tribal people in the area who've been there for, thousands of years.
Right.
And they deem him to be superior to them.
I agree.
I don't think most Africans would look at some little white dude and say, that guy's my leader. He is superior to me. He is the king of the apes. He is the king of Africa or whatever.
No, my point though is that, in my opinion, you could do that and it might, quote unquote, make a little more sense. But
Tarzan offends me. I freaking hate Tarzan. Go ahead. Just like I hate Tarzan almost as much as I hate Planet of the Apes.
Well, here's the thing. These stories, right? Race is not, quote unquote, a part of it, but it's interjected into the narrative just because.
I would disagree with that statement for Tarzan because he is literally called the Great White Ape. They literally call him that, the Great White Ape.
Listen. I'm not tripping, but now look here. Let's use Black Panther for example. The Black Panther mythos.
Yeah.
M'Baku was called in the movie. They called him the Great Gorilla.
Correct.
They did not want to call him Man Ape because of the optics of what it would look like.
Yeah.
To people. So, and that's, even though that is probably just as significant as the Panther mythos in Black Panther lore. It fits. It's not a foregone conclusion that you couldn't have a character like that, right?
Right.
However, the sensitive among us, because they associate us with monkeys and things of that nature, Marvel kind of looked at those like, nah, I don't think that's. We like the character, but we just no, we can't do that. We can do this, but we can't do that.
There's a certain segment of black folk that are going to be saying Disney's being racist, calling us gorillas. And
Exactly. So
right.
all I'm saying is going back to my Lord of the Rings thing is that, and there's no, I don't think nobody was clamoring for representation in terms of Lord of the Rings. I didn't see that. Now I know that there were
I
people,
would disagree.
As
a blurred who's into fantasy stuff, I applaud the fact that they recognize that it's all friggin' fantasy. It's not based on history. It's not based on any particular country in America or Europe or anywhere else in the world. It's a fantasy world.
No, but listen to this. I don't recall as a little kid thinking to myself, okay, I want to be Frodo. I want to be Bilbo. I want to be Gandalf. I was just enjoying the story for what it was.
I get that.
You know what I'm saying? And that's all I'm saying. I'm not saying that, that there's a kid like, okay, we talk about more about diversity. So now there's more demand for diversity because we're talking about it.
Right. So but I remember as a kid playing Dungeons and Dragons.
Mm-hmm.
And in Dungeons and Dragons, you select what character you are. Same genre, same fantasy genre. Elves, hobbits, whatever, dragons, sorcerers, etc., wizards. Same genre. But when you're playing Dungeons and Dragons and you get to make up your own character, what do Blerds do? They make themselves black.
Yeah,
I'm going to play the wizard, but I'm a black wizard. I'm going to play the bowman, but I'm a black bowsman. I'm going to play the knight, but I'm a black knight. Because we want to be these characters, but we want to be ourselves as well.
I agree.
I have no problem with them making black elves because it's all fantasy. Now, look, it's different if they're doing a period piece. If they decide to do,
I know, but that's what I kind of feel like it is, in my opinion.
It's not.
I do think. I know it's fantasy, but I do think it's fantasy taking place in a particular period.
Here's the thing. I'll tell you why that's not accurate. Because that argument would make more sense in the same realm of fantasy on something that is based on what exists in our world. For example, King Arthur. Mm-hmm. To make King Arthur black wouldn't make sense because in the King Arthur story, which is fantasy, it is somewhat based on history because they actually mention that King Arthur is the King of England, right? There are knights. It has a premise of fantasy that is based on our actual historical reality. But J.R.R. Tolkien's Lord of the Rings story has nothing to do with our world. It does not name any countries. It does not name any languages.
It has Celtic themes, though, to it.
Themes, but other than that, it doesn't say anything about any particular country. The country Ireland is not mentioned. The country England is not mentioned. The country Spain is not mentioned.
I don't think it's supposed to, because this is actually before all of these things. You got to remember that we're getting off through this conversation with these, but I want us to get back to comics. But here's the thing. This is actually the period of, quote unquote, the dawn of man.
Right.
The time of the elves is passing. Man is coming into his own, so to speak, this particular phase. So it is a period piece in that regard. Mm-hmm. So when we talk about elves, we talk about orcs, things of that nature, that's from a specific time piece or geography, so to speak, because they're talking about Middle Earth also. I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying. I'm just offering debate as to I'm not saying it's not authentic to have these characters. I'm just saying it don't look a little odd.
So let me ask you that.
Don't
You
look
know
a
the
little odd, a
scene,
little short.
you know the part in Lord of the Rings where they're battling for Middle Earth and Sauron calls upon the forces of evil to serve him, right? And he has this army of people that ride on these great big elephants. Where in Ireland or Celtic land were there elephants? Oh, and by the way, those people that ride on elephants, they happen to be brown skinned with bones through their noses.
Yeah. Okay.
Where do those people come from? So black people do in fact exist in Lord of the Rings. They're the antagonists because they're the evil elephant riding, spear chucking, bone in the nose people, but they do exist in Lord of the Rings. So is it a great leap to assume?
I didn't see him that way. I was naive.
Go back and watch the film. Those people have literally bones in their noses. They're riding elephants. They are spear chuckers.
My fandom predates the movie as far as Lord of the Rings. That's all I can say about it. But anyway, let's get back to comics.
Let me ask you: is the elephants thing in the books?
I don't recall. To be honest with you, I don't recall. I don't think they are. To be honest with you, I don't recall elephants. I mean, that's the other thing too. You know, it's like I remember. I'll give you a side story, then we'll get back to comics.
All right.
Have you ever seen the Chronicles of Narnia?
Yeah.
Okay. The movies. You saw the movies?
I saw the movies. I actually read the book as a child, Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe.
Right. So I remember when the trailers and all that came out, and of course you see centaurs or half humans, half horses. Okay.
Yeah.
And I remember having a conversation with someone who is a Christian, but she felt like that it was very anti-Christian. And
well,
I was
you got some creatures that have some cloven feet, so that could definitely ruffle some feathers. I can see that.
It could ruffle some feathers, but I was like, but this was someone that didn't know the story. It's like it's really the most Christian fantasy story ever written.
It's literally a Christian allegory.
Yeah,
literally.
it is. And so she wasn't aware of that though, you know, and I had to explain it to her or whatever. But it's just either the aesthetics of things or whatever our prejudices, and not to your point, our prejudice can be what's the word I'm looking for? It can skew our thoughts as to what's real or what's proper or whatever, you know. And again, I'm gonna watch the show like everybody else will, but you know, it's one of those things like we didn't really ask for this, but okay. Except for the new, you know, they're doing a remake of The Color Purple, right?
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, they're doing a remake of The Color Purple.
Is it going to have
nobody asked for that? But they're doing and I still don't understand why. But anyway, that's
there's certain films that when they're done, there's no reason to remake them. They're done. They're perfect. There's no way to. How do you improve upon that? You add more special effects or something like. What is the purpose?
But I will say, shout out to Amir, and they talked about. Have you watched Bel Air?
No, I haven't. I'm going to try and watch it with my wife this weekend.
Man, yeah, go ahead and watch it, bro. That's a very, very good show. They have done that very well. You know, I'm not a fan of reboots, but they made it basically a serious drama.
Right.
It's not a comedy at all. It's 100% drama, and it is very, very good, very good. So I know you and the wife will definitely enjoy it. I tried to get my wife to sit. I binge watched the first 5 episodes. And I tried to get her to sit down and watch, but she was too busy doing her thing with her plants.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what's up. But let's get back to books, man. So outside of the superhero stuff, you know, New Masters This book here,
Yeah.
pretty dope, man. In terms of, I'm not sure where they're going with it, but I'm intrigued, and
Yes.
that's
That's
really all
exactly
a
how
book.
I'd phrase it.
And that's all a book really has to do for me, is to give me some intrigue.
It
And
definitely makes
so
you want to buy issue 2.
yeah, I love the art. The art is pretty cool. Um, these watercolors on this cover, for example,
Beautiful.
are are pretty amazing, man. Pretty amazing.
There's
And
actually
so
quite a few comics coming out of Africa, right?
yes,
I
yes,
mean, we've got the Unique Studios
yes.
with their characters Wale, EXO,
Hmm.
Malika, Yanlu. Um, there's what do you call it? New Republic Comics as well. Out of
Right.
I think they're also Nigerian as well.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
Guardian
You know this
Prime.
guy. They also did this guy Shobo. He he's doing
They're
Buckhead
brothers.
too.
They're
Yeah,
brothers. The two,
yeah.
the writer and the artist are brothers.
Yeah, they're doing Buckhead as well. So they
Oh,
have
really? I didn't
that type.
realize it's the same guys that do Buckhead.
Yes, yes. So we're getting a lot. You black Americans better catch up. The brothers from the motherland ain't playing with y'all.
Yeah.
They coming for the title. I mean, especially when you talk about, me and you were talking behind the scenes. We're talking about Unique,
Yeah.
and bruh, Unique is nothing to play with.
Yep.
They have legitimate characters,
Yeah.
legitimate stories, legitimate man. And you know what's funny? When they were doing their Kickstarters and they were promoting um, Malika particular, they gave out, it was like their top tier gift as far as you're giving. You know what I'm saying? You know how you give on a certain level.
Mm-hmm.
They had Malika Funko Pops, limited edition. Those things are going to be worth a guap.
Yeah.
And shout out to Dark Horse for actually partnering with them and putting their books out, man. So I love Malika.
Those
EXO.
the Unique did what Milestone did and said we're gonna own these characters. We're gonna create the characters the way we want, but we're gonna partner with an established publishing company that
Mhm.
will allow us to get these books printed, put out in stores, um, promoted properly, but we still retain all the rights on the book.
Yeah,
They followed the Milestone formula
yeah,
and are getting a lot of accolades for that. So shout
yeah,
out to them
yeah.
for that.
But they also, I think, set the future in terms of not doing floppies
Mhm.
and just doing trades.
They're just doing trades.
Um, they're just doing trades, and I'm not mad at that. You know what I'm saying? It's like get a lot of material. I think I don't know if I have it. It might be on my other shelf. But the Malika book I think it's like almost 300 pages.
Yeah, I just
Uh,
ordered the how do you pronounce it?
ESO.
Iyanlu book.
Okay. Yeah.
I ordered that for my daughter actually. I should be
Okay.
getting it in a few weeks.
That's what's up. Yeah. But Unique is just one of a few. We talked earlier about Black Sands. Black Sands right now has a program, not a program, but a promotion that they're doing. It's like you can literally get all of their books. It's like for $75. And you know, I mean, it's a great deal for all of that if you want to buy all that much material.
Right.
But they're going to probably make their mark in the animation department. Uh,
Right.
they're already doing it. You know what I'm saying? They just connected with Kevin Hart, so you're going to probably see them. Funny thing is, you'll see them on a streaming service. A brand like that, do you remember when cartoons used to come on Saturday?
Man, come on. Of
Saturday
course I
morning,
remember that. That's my
Saturday
entire
morning,
childhood.
Saturday morning cartoons. That does not exist anymore. And
Saturdays, for
it's
those that
pretty
don't understand what we're talking about.
sad.
Saturday mornings when me and Rich were kids it was just an experience because we didn't have streaming services, we didn't have VCRs back in the day.
Nope. Nope.
So you had to catch these shows live. And if you
Yep.
missed the show, you missed out. So
Yep.
you get up in the morning, mom and dad are probably sleeping in. You get up early. You
Yep.
go to the kitchen, get
Yep.
yourself a bowl, you get
Big
yourself
bowl
some cereal, big old bowl, not a little bowl. You get the bowl that your mom mixes up the cakes in. You get that bowl. You pour in about a third of the box of cereal into the bowl. You take about half the box of milk, pour it in there. You take a tablespoon, not a teaspoon, a tablespoon, and you take that and you go sit on the couch. You then have to walk up to your television because we didn't have remote controls back then. You walk up to your television, you turn it on, you flip it to the channel of your choice. Yes. Turn it, flip it, because you had to flip the channel. Then you sat back down on the couch. You then pulled up your bowl of cereal and just start eating your cereal as you watch your morning cartoons. Now, the morning cartoons would start at about, 8 o'clock or so?
Yep.
And they would go until about noon, 1 o'clock. All cartoons all day. You have to switch channels between the various cartoons you want to watch on whatever stations. And it was a mixture of cartoons and live action because you have the cool live action shows back then too.
Yep.
Because you would have like Shazam, the Shazam ISIS hour.
Yep.
Mixed in with these classic Hanna-Barbera cartoons or the old Marvel cartoons, Marvel superheroes cartoons, etc. And then after 12 or 1, when the cartoons would end, what did you have? Kung Fu Theater. Kung Fu Theater. And that would take you for the rest of the day until about 6, 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
That was your Saturday.
That was Saturday mornings for a whole generation.
A whole generation. That was your entire Saturday.
And man, I would just tell you that, when streaming services came on board or whatever, it was all about, getting your stuff on demand. So you didn't have to be disciplined to sit there for, 8 to 11, 3-4 hours and watch these cartoons. You could watch them whenever time you ever wanted to. And that's fine or whatever, but it took something out of the joy of just being able to, and even if, because one of the things that you could do after watching cartoons like that, go outside with your friends and talk about or play, watching the shows, the Kung Fu Theater, all of that. Just conversations about that. That was fandom. That was nerdom at its finest, or whatever. And so, our generation was blessed enough to where we saw that, and then we saw the genesis of video games as well. After
we learned how to play, we learned how to pay attention, right?
Yeah.
Because we didn't have a pause button. There's no rewind button.
Nope.
So you had to watch the show until the commercial break, and then you have to go to the bathroom, get your food or whatever, and get back within the 2 minutes for the commercial break, or you miss out.
Yep. And you didn't necessarily want to miss the commercial because the commercial will have
all the toy advertisements. Yeah, the old toy advertisements.
All of that stuff, whatever, what I'm saying. Even doing like Christmas time, you get the big J.C. Penney Sears catalog. But all the good stuff. Yeah, man. Well, I mean, it was a magical time. Comics today, while it's I'm glad that comics are a thing today. There was something kind of dope about it. It's like going to a comic shop, or not a comic shop, but going to a Woolworths, going to a 7-Eleven, in buying comics, off a spinner rack. For you, like going to a bodega, those kind of things, those kind of experiences. Um, you can't, you know, kids today they wouldn't know what you went where about this. I mean, it's a pretty dope, pretty dope experience. We grew up with a lot of fandom. But let me ask you, we talking about all this fandom stuff or whatever. What is the? I guess anime is. I think there's a reason why anime and manga is big as it is because this is kind of their fandom, so to speak. Because we didn't have that. It's like you were
We
talking
did to
earlier.
an extent. It just wasn't as big as it is today.
No. I remember when I
Because when I
first
was a
saw
kid,
it.
we had like Star Blazers and Battle of the Planets and Robotech in the 80s, early 80s, late 70s, early 80s.
Robotech, and Battle of
Speed
the Planet
Racer.
definitely was the first of that type of stuff. But I remember the first time I saw a manga book.
Yeah.
I was like, what? You started the back of the book?
There's no color?
Yeah. I just thought that was so weird. I just like, I never
How can you be
gravitated.
into a comic book with no colors?
Who knew?
And there's so much words. Like, it's a lot of words.
A lot of words, a lot of stuff to read. What are pictures? But as far as comics today go, and I talked about. Did you get a chance to? You say you didn't get a chance to read this, did you?
No, not yet.
Yeah. This is an interesting book as well. It's got my interest peaked. I'm not sure. I think it's more of a horror comic or fantasy comic than anything. So we'll see what goes on with that. But
As we talk
comics
about
today.
these things from our childhood,
Mhm.
were you ever into like the kaiju movie, like Godzilla movies,
Oh yeah,
and
I was
the
a
big
big.
Japanese mecha type thing?
Yeah, I was into Giant Robot. I was into Ultraman.
Okay.
Uh,
So
yeah.
I would encourage you when you go back to LCS to look for a book called We Are Titans. We Ride Titans.
Okay.
We Ride Titans is a new book that it's on a second issue. The second issue just came out this week.
Okay.
Basic premise: you have a world where kaiju's exist. They threat. It's very much like Pacific Rim, the movie Pacific Rim. Kaiju's exist. They attack cities. They've developed these giant robots called Titans to fight them. And there is this one family where the father's a brother, actually.
Okay.
And he has a son who's fighting a kaiju. Something happens to the son, and he has to go to his daughter. He's married. I think he's married to a white woman, so his kids are biracial. So he goes to his daughter and says, "Hey, your son, your brother was injured, or something happened to him as he was fighting the kaiju's and the Titan. You need to step up because our family has always been protectors of the city. So you need to step in." And they have a estranged relationship. So he's basically asking her to step into the role of being a Titan pilot. So dope book. If you're into kaiju and big mecha robots and want to see some black people in that,
Okay.
We Ride
Look at
Titans.
that.
It's on the second issue. It's an easy way to get in.
Okay. Well, it's interesting. Marvel did a Ultraman book
Yeah.
about a year ago. They started an Ultraman book. I mean, I've got Ultraman comics. Um, yeah, got quite a few of those. And I grew up watching Gamera, Godzilla.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Gamera was always my favorite, the turtle. But all of that stuff. I mean, even the as far as like the horror, Universal horror books, or I mean, not books, but franchises. Dracula, Frankenstein, Wolfman, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
I'm looking forward to Marvel really exploring that Legion of Monsters storyline, bringing those characters back. There was a comic book series called Nick Fury's and his Howling Commandos.
mm-hmm.
It was like another iteration of it where the Howling Commandos were all Legion of Monsters.
Okay.
So a werewolf and I think like a vampire, those type of characters became agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Didn't they come out recently?
Yeah, it came out in early 2000s, I think.
Yeah, I'm trying to think.
Brother Voodoo got recruited in that. That's how I discovered it, because I was, I've been collecting all the Brother Voodoo appearances I can find. And Brother Voodoo got recruited by S.H.I.E.L.D. to be part of this Nick Fury Howling Commandos team.
I'll check it out. But I mean, I think I've seen that. And I may have one or two issues about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, come on. The Marvel stuff is, I'll be honest, man. I don't know how they're going to compete with Rodney Barnes. I mean, that guy there, man, he's got a situation set up where his franchise could really do something.
Oh man, look, when that Philadelphia, look, I think the best thing that could happen is HBO is smart enough to extend him a deal on Philadelphia, because he's already had an established relationship with HBO.
Right.
If HBO Max picks up Philadelphia, I'll say it today, it's going to be a wrap. It's going to be a wrap. There is no way that HBO Max, if they pick up Philadelphia, that it's not a success. It's perfectly slated for that. It's a perfectly slated format-wise for HBO Max, and it would be highly successful. And the way that he is doing his Philadelphia verse, it's only a matter of time before it spins off into Nita Hawes, Elysium Gardens. The way he's writing his stories now, where all of these, you're showing all the connections.
Right.
Dude, can you imagine seeing that on the screen, bro?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I remember when I first started reading Philadelphia, I said to myself, and I think I've said it on lives, that this reads like a movie. It doesn't read like a comic book.
Yeah.
And,
or better yet, a streaming service television show.
Yeah. And so for me, it's a no-brainer for them to do that. You know what I'm saying? But of course, shout out to Rodney Barnes in that he is very humble in his writings and in what he does, in that he's had some success. But he's also had some no's. You know what I'm saying? We see all the success now, but we weren't there when he was probably being turned down for all kind of different things. But we're here now, as they say, and it's cool, and I'm definitely looking forward to his Mandalorian. So we got the news that his Mandalorian thing just got approved, so he's going to be writing the season 1 comic book adaptation of the Mandalorian. So that's huge.
So let me talk about this, because I'm a Star Wars head.
That's real huge. Yeah.
Let me explain to people how huge this is. Now, he's not just writing a comic book with Star Wars, which would be even more ideal than this, but he's doing an adaptation of the television show, of the season 1 of the television show. So I don't know how much leeway he's going to have to sort of do side stories or what have you, but there is a certain degree of leeway, and I have lots of adaptations of movies and television shows in comic book form. What's interesting about adaptations is, if you really do it right, you actually have the ability to add in stuff that happens in between scenes. That's what I'm fascinated by.
Right.
There is the ability to do that in the comic book realm. So his plot is already laid out for him. But
Right.
what he does in between scenes is kind of his discretion, what they allow him to do, basically. If they allow him to do some things that are sort of in between scenes, or maybe a
Mhm.
B story or something to fill in some
Right.
additional plot, that would be huge, because the way the Star Wars comics in Marvel are set up, everything that is in the comic books are canon.
Yeah.
Everything in the comic books are canon to the Star Wars universe, as exemplified in this recent Boba Fett series, in which they brought in that black Wookiee, Black I can't pronounce his name, Karstan. They brought in, well, from the cartoons, Cad Bane.
Right.
The whole Star Wars universe, movies, television shows, comics, video games, cartoons, they're all canon. Everything that's been done by Disney is all part of the same universe. So any characters he creates in his comic book are become part of the comic book lore, Star Wars lore, and they could show up on the screen someday. Beyond all that, for the first time in history that I know of, you have a black writer and a black artist doing a Star Wars book. Because his artist is Georges Genti. For those who don't know Georges Genti, and I apologize if he's watching this, if he ever watches this. I don't know if I'm mispronouncing your last name properly, but he has a history of doing. He's done the Star Wars: The High Republic. He's the artist on Star Wars: The High Republic. He also has done Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Is that the IDW, or is he doing the Marvel?
He's doing the. He did the. It's a good question. He did the Marvel Star Wars:
Okay.
The High Republic.
Okay.
Talented brother, very detail oriented, first writer, artist, black team who's ever done Star Wars before. So that in itself is historically significant.
Yeah.
So mad props to them.
Yeah. You know,
only on the most important Star Wars property they have out right now, which is Mandalorian.
No doubt. Did you get a chance to see the end of Boba Fett?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That was pretty dope.
That was great. I
They
call
wrapped
Boba
it up in
Fett
a
season
nice
1, Mandalorian 2.5, season 2.5.
Yeah, man. It was dope. It was dope. The Mandalorian season 3 is gonna be phenomenal.
Yeah.
And of course they're gonna have Ahsoka. She's gonna have her own show.
Yeah.
Looking forward to that. Speaking of Star Wars comics or whatever, I just started reading Thrawn.
Thrawn? Okay.
Yeah, I just started
Wait,
reading Thrawn.
did you buy it?
No.
You got it
By the
digitally?
way, let me stop, because you posted something in our group that a guy said that cosmicology comes a part of Prime. That is not true. You can get cosmicology through Prime, but it is not the same. It's not free.
No, it's not free.
It's not free.
No, basically what it is, and I've had a Comixology account for a long time. Comixology got bought out by Amazon. And you can set it up so that you can log into Comixology, set up an account and log into Comixology through your Amazon account. That's really what that means. But for the premium features, you still have to pay for it. Like unlimited Comixology, you still got to pay the $60 per year, and then you have access to their unlimited, comics.
But what you can do with Prime is you can read comics on the Prime list, and I'm reading Thrawn through Amazon Prime.
Yeah.
So I'm borrowing it.
Yes.
Borrow books. So that's what you can do with Amazon Prime. You can borrow certain titles. And Thrawn is what I'm reading right now. I've read several comic book through Prime. That's an alternative way to read books. If you have a Prime account, you can read certain books for free.
If
And so
you're a
that's
Star
what.
Wars fan, I highly recommend you read the comic books. The comic books are so good. The Star Wars comic books are really good. There have some problems with the High Republic stuff, but by and large, the Star Wars comic books are
which is
really
which
well
is
done.
why which is why I have the first 11 issues of High Republic,
Yeah,
and I'm ready to go. Um, the writing is okay, so it's okay, but it just really did not draw me in. I mean, you know what I'm
yeah.
saying? It kind of went away from uh the protagonist, uh and it kind of like taking the focus off of her.
It
Um,
did, but in the last few issues, because it ends soon. I mean, I
right,
think that it ends in like issue 15 or whatever.
right.
Um, in the last several issues, they have introduced new things that will be significant for Star Wars in the future. Um, I'll just leave it at that.
Kiev, Jedi Kiev, Master
There's a lot.
Kiev.
Yeah, Keith Trennis. Keith
Yeah.
Trennis is in the main Star Wars High Republic book. In the other book, Star Wars High Republic Adventures, there's a
Yeah.
sister by the name of Lulu Towarlova, something like that.
Mhm.
What's interesting is all these Star Wars High Republic books have black protagonists, black female protagonists.
Mhm.
I don't know who authorized that, but thank you.
Well, I mean, I think that they had been, I guess, neglected early
Yeah,
on. You know, what I'm saying? It's been it was Lando as far as black representation, and
right.
then it became Mace Windu or Finn
It was supposed to be Finn,
later on.
but they
Yeah,
screwed
yeah,
that up.
yeah, it was supposed to be Finn, but they bait and switch.
They really
Um,
look. I get so angry when I think about that.
yeah, they messed that up. I mean, you know what I'm
They
saying?
they messed it up bad. There's no way. There's no good way to say that. They literally screwed that up.
but I'll be honest with you. I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm glad that I'm if there was a time when I said, you know what, diversity didn't need needed, I would say in these last three Star Wars movies, I'm glad that wasn't on our watch. I'll say it like that. Because that story failed on so many levels. And you know what I'm saying? That was one of them. That was one of them. You ever watch the news and you hear about a killer or somebody did something? Man, I should hope they ain't black.
Yeah. I just wonder if they had stuck with what obviously the original
Plan
storyline was
was.
supposed to be, where Finn was literally the protagonist of the story, the central part of the story. If they'd kept Finn the central part of the story and done his journey from being a stormtrooper and becoming a Jedi, if they had stuck to that story, if it would have turned out a lot different, a lot better.
Yeah, it didn't. I don't know why. I think that they were also. It was clear that they made a mistake. They knew they blew it, and you know, the Mandalorian actually saved that franchise,
Yes, it did.
and
That's
no
that's
one
not even
had,
understating it.
because I think that most Star Wars heads were content with just reading the comics and the
Hmm.
books.
Right.
They stopped going to the movie theaters. It's like, you know what? The casuals can go to the movie theaters and they can watch. But for us, we're good. We're not gonna continue to support this. And Kathleen, what's her last name?
Kennedy.
Uh, Kennedy. Yeah, she caught a lot of heat, and rightfully so.
Rightfully so.
But she's trying to right the ship, and so I'm not mad at that. Salute to her. But I do think that going forward, it's okay to have these characters in these books or whatever, but we want some of that to transfer over to the big screen or the little screen even. But at the same time, give us good story. That's the thing that made, I think, Boba Fett and Mandalorian great, is that they're giving us good stories, good adventures.
If you want to read the best Star Wars comic books, I would highly recommend that you check out the Dark Horse Star Wars comic books. The Dark Horse Star Wars comic books, hands down, the best Star Wars comic books that ever been made. Good luck getting copies of Star Wars: The Old Republic, because those comics are fire. Those comics are fire, and you can't find them. Nobody's selling it. If they're selling it, they're selling it at astronomical numbers.
Yeah, that is, and that's what a lot of people have been clamoring for, which is why we won't get them, because they were printed under Dark Horse.
Yeah,
even though they have the right to them, they probably won't ever print them.
The Star Wars High Republic is laughable in comparison to what was done in Star Wars: The Old Republic. Just hands over fist, just a better storyline.
I don't know. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Again, I've only read, I mean, as far as the comics, a few. But as far as the books, I've only read like four or five Star Wars books.
Yeah.
And I guess you could say they were, well, they're canon, but they're not recognized as major books or whatever. And those were the Darth Bane trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
I read those, and I read Darth Plagueis, and I think I did read the first Star Wars book, the very first Star Wars book, the novelization of Star Wars. I read that, but you know, but one of the things that they're doing, the Disney Plus is doing, they're doing a show called The Acolyte that won't be out till 2023.
Yeah, man.
And that's supposedly deals with the Sith,
the Inquisitors,
leading up to Palpatine. So that's going to be fun for real. So
that's gonna
be fun, man, for real. We're gonna be talking about that up there. Yeah, man. Well, look, Doc, it's 2 hours in, man. Ain't nobody watching. We didn't got away from the comics too much.
Yeah, I apologize to everyone for getting off the topic of the comics.
No, that's probably my fault. That was probably my fault. But I mean, here's the thing:
a stack of books here to talk about. Yeah. I didn't get to flex my Batman, my Black Panther #3 Just Go variant.
Whoa, nice.
Or my Mighty Avengers 4 variant.
Oh wow. I never seen that one. That's new.
Seven black characters on a cover. That's just dope, man.
Yeah. We didn't even get a chance to talk about this.
Hardware. Well, let's talk about it before we get off.
Okay.
You've been flaming Milestone repeatedly, the new Milestone 2.0, but
try not to. But yeah,
I will say, look, hardware was the original Milestone. Hardware was probably it's hard for me to tell which one's my favorite Milestone title versus hardware versus static. You know, those two are right neck and neck with me on the original Milestone run. I really loved hardware. This last hardware run in 2.0 has suffered from the delays of not being on time. I mean, I don't even remember when the last book came out, like 2-3 months ago. And that's just not good for fandom because you forget what happened. This book seemed, in my opinion, it was a decent book. It was just, it seemed like too much filler. It seems like it was a placeholder for the next issue to me. Like not enough happened in it to be considered a significant issue. It's almost like a half an issue.
You know what? I'm gonna be honest with you. I feel like the hardware book, no shade at Brandon Thomas, but I honestly feel that this is a story that's incomplete,
Yes.
and we don't really know where we're going with it.
Right. And there's only like one or
And
two issues left.
yeah, and of course the to your point about the time, uh, you know, I want to pull for Milestone. I really do, but I can't ignore their execution. And that's, I think that's been the thing that has bothered me. The one thing about the Milestone, original Milestone, was that their books were this. Those books came out on time. Those books didn't come out. Matter of fact, some of them books came out like twice a month.
Yeah.
They
And
were
99 cents.
that too. That too. And so I'm looking at this and I'm like, it's like I said earlier when we was talking behind the scenes, it's like when you look at the writing today, today's writing versus yesterday's writing, can't even compare. And it's not, I won't say it's not the same deal, but I just it leads me to wonder what was their thought going into this book? Because it's like, okay, originally we weren't going to get a hardware. Then they said, oh yeah, we're going to do hardware. Okay. But they've been dragging their feet with it. And no one's talking about it because they've been dragging their feet with it. It's almost a forgotten property in the Milestone stuff. I mean, at least the Static book, for all of its worth, been consistent. It's been coming out on time anyway. Can't fault Vita for that. She did her job. She's doing her job. But I'm not sure what's going on with the situation with her.
Yeah,
that's
having
one
these
of the
delays just really affect your enjoyment of the book. It really does. Because we've built up, we in this space have built up so much hype and excitement about Milestone's return, because I've only been waiting 25, 30 years for Milestone to return.
Exactly.
And so look, I'm all in. I mean, my viewership is, it's already predestined for you. All you got to do is just make a halfway decent book and I'll buy every issue. But yeah, having you wait 3 months for a book, it's just not a good look, man. I mean, I literally was like, what happened in the last issue? I don't even remember. And then this issue didn't really move the needle all that much in terms of the story.
And here's part of the embarrassment.
Don't start me with that, man.
Add the milestones in history.
I was really looking forward to that book. That was a historical book, because the concept of having your heroes from your book meet up with actual Black heroes in history as edutainment. I mean, I was all here for it. A brilliant concept. Milestone could really have made history with that. I'm very disappointed that not only is it not being released in Black History Month, the Black History book is not being released in Black History Month. It's actually been pushed back an additional 4 months to June.
Yep.
I don't know what's going on behind closed doors there. But it's not a good look.
The only thing
I'm very disappointed.
In my opinion, the only thing it could be is budget. It says here, according to the ad, it's a 96-page prestige format one shot.
Yeah.
So chances are this book is going to be $10, $15.
And hardcore Milestone fans like me probably would have bought both covers.
Yep. And
and not batted an eye.
We're going to buy it. We're going to buy it when it comes out.
We're just disappointed we have to wait this damn long. It's just, it kills your fandom, man.
Yeah. And that's the thing. It kills the fandom. It was what was supposed to make Black History Month this month special.
Yeah.
I mean, the covers. Listen, the covers of it I've seen, and they're great. Okay, I'm not mad at it. But that book there was supposed to be the thing that set, you know what I'm saying, that really celebrated the month. Now we're not going to get it to June. So, and it's very unfortunate. And I think it boiled down to execution, deadlines and
Yeah, I don't know how you
commitment.
fall that far behind on deadlines. Hey, shout out to Arthur English. Good evening.
What's going on, man? But it's unfortunate that that's the way that it's gone. Icon and Rocket clearly by far is the best book in the Milestone 2.0. Now we're getting Blood Syndicate coming up. I'm not thrilled about that, and that being they're going to do the retconning the story. They're gonna make these guys soldiers.
Oh, I hadn't heard that.
Yeah,
That's the
yeah.
storyline.
They're gonna be soldiers. They're not gonna be gangbangers. They're gonna be soldiers. And so I'm like, okay, we'll go with it. You know what I'm saying? We'll see how
That
it shapes
part
up.
doesn't bother me that much. I mean, you kind of come. I mean, gang banging is not as
No, I'm not.
here
Yeah,
in the 21st century.
and I get that, but the thing is that Blood Syndicate was a combination of two gangs. Them coming together, they unifying under this one banner. That's so to speak.
Hmm?
So from that perspective, I mean, I get the thought. Okay, gang banging is passe, or they don't want to promote that. You know what I'm saying? I get it. You know what I'm saying? But I think that what made Blood Syndicate was the uniqueness of the stories that they're going to tell. Now I don't know what's up their sleeve. I'm going to buy the first couple of issues. I'll check it out, and I will judge it for what it's worth when it does come out.
See, don't already prejudge the book saying I'm only going to buy the first couple issues. Say you're going to buy the whole run. I'm going to support regardless.
Well, if you know what, I'm gonna treat it like voting. Can't complain if you don't vote. I'm gonna treat it like voting.
Arthur English asks us, what are your top 5 Black History covers this year? I think it's year. There have been a lot of good Black History covers this year. Honestly, the one that I think that really strikes me. Maybe I should pull it up. Let me see if I can pull it up. Give me 1 second. Let's go to our website.
I would be wrong to say I don't even think. To be honest, I don't even have any other Black History covers. I didn't buy anything as far as I just bought the regular 8 covers and stuff.
So
you're gonna put up the Lucius Fox.
You'd be surprised what my pick is. The one I've gravitated the most to. Let me share.
Or the Joe Mullen and John Stewart.
That's one of them.
Okay.
This one right here. This is beautiful. This one of Natasha Irons.
Yep.
Alexis Franklin did the Black History Month variants for DC. She did all of them, I believe. This one she did of Natasha Irons. This is a beautiful cover.
Yeah.
I mean, that is highly detailed. It's got energy. It's got motion.
And that's the Superman book. Action Comics, which one?
Action Comics 1040.
Okay.
That's a beautiful, beautiful cover. Now, there have
I
been
might
some
have to
other
go
ones.
get that. I might have to go get that.
Yeah, that's a dope one. Here's the one for Aquaman, um, with Black Manta and what's his face,
Jackson Hyde.
Jackson Hyde. Sorry, I'm having a brain fart right there. That's also a beautiful cover.
Yeah.
But hands down, obviously, the best one that we've had, in my opinion, in terms of form. Here's another Black History cover. This one's coming out in the next week or two. For those who don't know, this is Fantastic Four 41. Now this one's done by Sway with Lunella Lafayette. What is your Miles Morales foolishness? I don't know if this is a Black History Month one. This is Storm on X-Men 9, Stormbreakers variant. Just as an aside, Rich, this is the next issue of Strange Academy.
Mm-hmm.
That's a dope cover with Dr. Voodoo in the classroom, the empty classroom.
Right.
Yeah. Spider-Man 92 comes out in 2 weeks. Monica Rambeau cover. Let's take a look at the other one. There's another one that's coming up. Where's the one with the 2 Green Lanterns? Oh, here it is.
Yeah, there it is.
So this cover, I think, takes the cake for the #1 Black History Month cover. I personally have labeled this the Too Black, Too Strong cover. Because you got the 2 Green Lanterns, fists raised in the air with their Green Lantern power rings on. They're raising their power rings up in the ring. This is literally a Black Power, Too Black, Too Strong cover.
Yep.
In that iconic.
And you know what's funny? Can't find that cover either.
What do you mean you can't find the cover?
They scooped those up pretty out here. They scooped them up pretty quick.
You did not pre-order the cover, brother, as I told you to.
No.
This is me giving you side eye right now.
I get the normal B cover for his Green Lantern. I get the B cover.
Bro, I posted this so long ago. You have no excuse.
I know you did. I know. I really listen. I wasn't. I mean, it's okay. You know. I mean, I'll eventually get it. You know. But it wasn't a priority. It just wasn't. We got to understand. I was in my feelings behind issue 10.
And on top of it all, this issue. This is issue 11. The issue that you just said was a good issue.
Yeah. I
so
know.
Not only was it a good Green Lantern issue, it's a dope cover.
Yeah.
This is the I Am Batman #6. Not a bad cover. This is the Nubia cover with the spear. I have this one as well. I mean, look at these colors.
Yeah, they're beautiful, no doubt. I don't know. Like I said, I didn't really get.
This is the one a lot of people slept on. A lot of people didn't know about this one. The Flash 779.
Wallace West. Yeah.
Wallace West. Again, this is like my personal favorite. I don't know why. The expression on her face, the motion of all the stuff around her. I just think this is a work of art.
Chunking up the deuce. Yeah, it's dope. It's dope cover. I ain't mad at it.
This is the one that got Kevin Greaves upset. All legacy characters.
You know, shout out to Kevin Greaves. He's actually doing a movie. He's filming a movie right now. And
is he?
Yeah, he's filming a movie and directing a movie too. He's directing it and filming it. So he's in it and he's directing it. So looks like some geek fandom type stuff too. So I think it's a horror story, but yeah, he's doing that. And you know, I know me and Kay were talking about the blue Marvel action figure that Marvel just dropped, and everybody's gonna go bananas when that comes out or when it's available.
Dude, I already pre-ordered mine, dog. I've been. Look, I'm not even an action figure guy. I actually prefer
Yeah.
statues than action figures, but that's literally one I've been waiting on.
I want it in a Funko Pop. I want a Blue Marble Funko Pop.
Well, that too.
That's what as far as what I collect, and that's what I want. I'm not going to get the action figure.
Yeah.
When it does come out in the Funko Pop, I'm definitely going to make a point to go get it. So, yeah. But right, that's going to probably
Arthur English is mentioning also the Marvel books. I'm looking up on our website for the Marvel books, Black History Month books, as well. I didn't forget those either, man, because some of those were fire. I mean, Sway
This is
did
the
a
only
bunch
one
of,
I bought. That's the only
huh?
one I bought. It was just the Marvel Voices.
That's
And
the only cover you got?
yeah,
They had some good ones, man.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I mean, look at the Oliver Capio one.
yeah, yeah.
Here, let's pull up the Marvel Voices when we're talking about the Black History ones. Share. So here are the Marvel Voices ones. This is the one you got. This is one done by
Right.
Chris Cross. This is the one done by
Mhm.
Natasha Bustos, who's one of the co-creators of Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur.
Right.
This is the one by Torrin Clark, which I call the recast T'Challa photo because they're basically having T'Challa up on a mural in reverence, basically showing he's dead. I don't like this cover. I mean, I don't like the theme of the cover. The art's beautiful, but the implications I don't like. This is the Olivier Coipel, who's one of my favorite cover artists of all time.
Wow.
This one with I forget the artist on this one, but this the Captain Marvel, Monica Rambeau, just looking glorious. Here's the other Nubia one by Alithia Martinez. I don't think this is Alithia Martinez's best work, to be honest with you. For Black History Month cover, that I've seen her do far better than this. I was honestly a little disappointed in this one. This cover is by Junie Ba, Black artist who's got a very unique style. That's obviously the one with the spear that we talked about before.
Right.
Here's the one that Arthur was talking about, the X-Men #9 with Storm on the cover.
Mm-hmm.
That's a dope one. That one's done by Sway, I think. Again, Sway did a bunch of them. They basically all the companies went to Sway, and it's like, dude, we need to do Black History covers.
Between him and Oliver Capel, he's the flavor of the month, or the flavor of the year, right?
He is the flavor of the month.
So yeah.
Where's the other one? Oh, look at these. These are some dope Nubia covers. Did you see this one? Number 6?
Nope.
That's
dope.
That's a beautiful cover. This one as well. And this one as well. These 3 covers from number 6, beautiful covers. One could argue those should have been the Black History Month covers because those are just gorgeous. Well, you're a Batman guy, right?
Yes, sir.
This is Batman Future State Gotham. This is the new character called Hunter Panic, and that's a black female character. That's her first. I believe this is her first cover appearance.
Okay. I wonder what they got. What? Okay, I see it like that. Because the Future State Gotham books are black and white.
Yeah.
But that's a nice color.
Yeah.
Okay.
Here's your new Masters you were talking about before. That's issue 2 that comes out on in another week.
Yep. Have you read The Monkey Meat?
I tried. It's not my cup of tea. I'll just say that.
Yeah. You know, the
It's
brother the brother that's doing it, he had some
Junie
commentary
Bob.
about, yeah, he had some commentary about Black Panther. I thought was pretty interesting, and because I think he's Nigerian,
Yeah.
and one of the things he said is he felt that Black Panther was more of an American, um, more of an American thing versus an African thing, and because I guess the commentary was, I guess they were trying to figure out, you know, is in fact Black Panther, even though he is considered African in terms of Wakanda being an African country, um, he kind of said to the point that it was more of an American dynamic, and I guess that's to be understood since it was created by two white Americans.
Right.
But it had an aesthetic that was more American than versus African.
I
Yes.
mean, I mean, I can definitely understand that viewpoint.
Yeah.
We don't like to talk about it. When I say we, I mean the cult of Bass are hardcore Black Panther fans, of which I consider myself a member of. But the reality is, from an academic standpoint, Black Panther, for all intents and purposes, could be considered part of that trope of the noble Negro,
Yeah.
right? The noble savage.
Mm-hmm.
The one who is above, despite the fact that he has been discriminated against and is in a system that's unfair against him. He rises above it by exemplifying the highest ideals of society, even if that society does not apply those ideals to him. That's
Right.
the trope of the noble savage, and that is what T'Challa literally fits into. And that's may not be something that um, Africans may appreciate because they didn't have the baggage that we in the Americas have to deal with in terms of our self identity
Right.
and having to live up to a particular type of trope or trying to not live up to, I should rather say, not live up to preconceived ideas as to who we are and what those tropes are.
Right.
We spend
Well,
most of our self identity trying to not fit into preconceptions. You ever notice that?
yeah. I mean, it's a tough deal because at the end of the day, the question is, who are you?
Right.
And you're not really sure. Um, some, even as we try to dress up in dashikis and kufis and and do certain things that have an African aesthetic to it. Some of it is by some of the Africans. They call it. Some of them call it cultural appropriation.
Right.
In the sense that that's not who we really are, because what we are or what we become is a lost people, and so because that nagging reality is of who we are. I mean, it is what it is. I think about Nelson Mandela when he was on trial in South Africa. Nelson was an attorney who was very well versed, and he was very sharp dressed. He had a reputation for being very, very he was a very sharp dresser. But his first day of his trial, he came to court in Zulu garb. He didn't come like a African that had been colonized or an African that had civilized training, quote unquote. He came as a tribesman. And the whole thought was, you know, if I'm going to go down, I'm going to go down myself, who I really, really am. Even though he had adopted the ways, you know, because it's one of those things when you watch like certain TV shows or when you watch certain news things when they show the Africans in court, they have the headdress of Europeans. It's like,
Mhm.
where does that come from? What does that mean, or whatever? So it wasn't just us that lost something. They too, and you know, a character like T'Challa, who has, for the most part, uh, been exemplary and has been a, you know, a model character in terms of his identity. He doesn't really struggle with that because when Stan Lee and Jack Kirby created him, they didn't want him to just be uh, an African. They wanted him to be a royal. They wanted him to be, you know, somebody that was familiar with technology. They made him a scientist, you know, for goodness sake. And so,
Something that people could aspire to and
yeah,
could categorically be respected
yeah.
across the
And
board.
so when you put all of that together, you know what I'm saying? I did my post about Black Panther, and I talked about, you know, how we respond and how we interact and how we see things. You know, I made a point to say that, you know, that T'Challa is the king of the dead. Now, in and of itself, as far as comic book fandom, that means one thing, right? But we are literally a people who are considered dead to some people. And he has that distinction of being king of the dead. And even in fandom, it almost fits. Does that make any sense? It almost fits in that, you know, we look to him to through aspiration. We look to him as a glimmer of hope. We look to him
for,
as
for our self
potential. And
identity.
yeah, exactly. And so it's just it's almost unfair. We're the only people that have to fight to be recognized by our own people. It's one thing to be to fight for recognition among, you know, the global elite, and it's another to fight with your own people. But to the movie, to the Black Panther movie, it was so much in that movie that I don't think no one is really fully disseminated. When Killmonger beat T'Challa and he went to the ancestral plane and he was in his apartment and he's having this conversation with his father. And he said, you know, he was afraid that they would not accept him. And he said they would say that you're lost. And he's looking at him like, but I'm here. That's our people. Our
Right.
people are here. But they say we're lost. So it's like, if you know I'm here, how am I lost? You know what I'm saying? When you look at it from that perspective, it gives pause. And that's why, you know, the devastation of our history is such that we are a people that were not just enslaved by white people, that our own people participated in this destruction, in this devastation.
Yeah, it's interesting. You know, slavery as a concept has existed amongst various cultures,
Mm-hmm.
dating back throughout human history. But what
Mm-hmm.
makes the transatlantic slave trade unique is in no other form of slavery in history, whether it be African slavery, Roman slavery, Greek slavery, etc., Persian slavery. In no other form of slavery is it mandated that you have to wipe out that person's cultural identity, wipe out their religion, their language, their cultural affiliation
Mhm.
completely? It's mandated that you
Mhm.
have to leave them uneducated
Mhm.
so that they cannot read to learn about themselves.
Mhm.
In no other form of slavery was it like that.
I mean, and that's the truth. And it's almost a science fiction. If you think about it, it's almost a science fiction thing.
Well, that's my point, because you made me think of something. We all are my personal superhero is Black Panther. A lot of people jumped on the Black Panther bandwagon with the film and stuff and idolize him and stuff.
Right.
And I think about what you just mentioned. His present status is King of the Dead, and we're, as you said, the lost people. We're I mean, what's another form of being lost? I mean,
Yeah.
when you are dead, you don't exist, not just physically, but in spirit and thought. Because they say when you lose a loved one, look, no one's really gone as long as you remember them, right?
Right.
That's kind of the point of our people here in Americas.
Mhm.
We don't remember our ancestors.
No.
We don't know who they are. So
No.
not only are we lost, we are a dead people. So
Yeah.
our king of the dead, Black Panther,
Yeah.
is the one that we declare our king because he gives us this idea of self-identity and something to aspire to, something that we
Right.
hold up on a pedestal of an idealized form of who we could be. That is
Yeah.
why he is our king of the dead and we're the dead.
Yeah. I mean, it's all relative. I think that when you talk about that or whatever, and it's weird too because it's a complicated thing, and it's complicated from this perspective. And I've shared this with you, and I'll share it again. But Zora Neale Hurston wrote a book called Barracoon, and Barracoon was about the last known slave in America. And the thing about this particular brother was that he was captured by the Dahomey tribe. The Dahomey tribe were known to be these fierce female warriors who they derived the Dora Milaje from, right?
Yeah.
And yet they were they were for a while there, they were admired, and they should be still to this day, I guess, to a certain degree, admired for their fierceness. But this was a tribe that enslaved other Africans and sold them to slave ships. This particular African named Kusola was sold by the Dahomey tribe to a slave ship. Got to remember, this was a time when slavery had been outlawed, but there were still people doing it on the open sea. So they had to do it in secret. Okay. And so this guy, he details the account of what happened. They murdered men, women, and children, and those who survived, they enslaved them. And that's been the sin of all of this in terms of when you think about it, yes, our brains were reprogrammed and all of that. But there were a lot of people that on the continent that participated in this. And of course that's what they did when they would fight with whatever. They would enslave or they would capture tribes, and that's what they would do. They would sell them as slaves. It's old as dirt, to be honest.
It is, but the one difference is that in Africa at that time, where you had these slaves, you had these warring tribes, and they would take, for all intents and purposes, prisoners of war from the
Mhm.
battles with the other tribes.
Mhm.
These prisoners of war are made slaves, right?
Mhm.
But
Right.
much like the system that you had in Rome, where you have a class of people that are known as slaves. The
Mhm.
difference is when you're enslaved by another tribe, you're not giving up your cultural identity.
No, no, no,
And
no.
you're also can be incorporated into that tribe. You can
Right.
eventually join the tribe. You can buy yourself, rise yourself up to a level where you're no longer a slave within the tribe and you join the tribe and you become a regular member of the tribe.
True.
And you're
But
not
here's the
giving
thing,
up your
Paul. You
cultural
know this.
identity.
I'm gonna drop something on you. This go you find this fun. You might have to do some research on it. Do you know that initially in the slave trade, that a vast majority of the slaves were just men?
Mhm.
They did not start importing females until it became a situation where it became expensive. And what the slaves masters and the slave traders had to do, they incorporated females for the expense of creating more slaves.
Yeah, breeding.
But we were not initially whole families. It would just be men for hundreds of years. I won't say for hundreds, but for over 100 years, it was just men. Women were not a part of the slave trade till later on, and it was because of the direct result to make more slaves. They only brought out. They eventually got the idea. You know what? Let's capture the women. We can make them have slaves because that's what they did. They made them concubines, and then they made them property to reproduce. But then initially, the beginning of slave trade began with just men. And to your point, it's one of those things where that was the truth. The erasing of our minds and things of that nature came uh, early on, only because you got to understand something. And this is a biblical. This is in the Bible, that when the uh, Nebuchadnezzar, he took the best that Israel had produced. These were nobles. These were royalty. They took the best. It's the same with us. They took the best of us and they enslaved us. They didn't just take anything. They took the best stock. And so we are the descendants of that best stock.
Right.
We were able to survive the middle
The
passage.
middle passage. Yeah.
Yeah, we were able to survive the middle passage. We were able to survive because many of the boats didn't come straight to America. They went to the islands, and then they were brought from the islands into America. And some would even say that the slavery in the islands was more horrible than it was in the Americas. But you have all of these dynamics, and you think about our story. It's a story that a lot of times we get tired of hearing, but yet only half the story's been told. Isn't that funny? That we could get tired of hearing about something that really we haven't even scratched the full surface of. One of the things that they want to do, which I think is a waste of time, but they have this bill, HR 40, that they've been trying to put past for whatever to get them to study the history of slavery in terms of reparations. And the whole thought is they need to study the cause and effect, the monetary uh, the monetary value. What did slavery really cost? And this is where this country is. And so while a lot of people are fighting that battle, a lot of us are still trying to figure out that one simple question: who am I?
Yeah,
And
they kind of actually touched upon that in that HBO television series, um,
yeah, the Watchmen.
The Watchmen. Yes,
Yeah,
where they actually calculated that number and gave the reparations out.
yeah. It's funny too
Interesting
because
concept.
they were upset about, there were a lot of white people upset at HBO behind it. How dare you start with the you
Tulsa
know
Massacre.
Tulsa Massacre 1921? How dare you bring that up? Or and the thing is, you know, that was just one story. There's literally hundreds of those stories. And you know, we talk about Black history, and you talk about all the things that we accomplished. That's the reason why Black history should be celebrated more than anything. Is the fact that our people survived the worst chattel slavery in the history of the world.
That's not even understating it.
And to create things like the refrigerator, to create things like the filament that go in light bulbs, to create things like
The
the
stoplight,
vapor rub,
the artificial heart,
to create the almanac, the
the super
freaking clock.
soaker, video game consoles.
you know, all of these different things, man. And that's why it's funny to me, because I don't think our people fully appreciate our strength, our the real superheroes among us. Because again, we are a people that survived slavery, Jim Crow, redlining, AIDS, crack, heroin, COINTELPRO. You know, but we fighting about legacy characters.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
you, you worried about wearing somebody's mantle, wearing a whitewashed character. I'm like, bruh, we got too many issues.
I think about the analogy of that, right? You talk about all the things that Black people have accomplished, right?
Right.
One of the things that Black people in America have accomplished created the first American forms of music,
Yeah.
jazz and blues.
Mm-hmm.
Those are literally the first truly American forms of music. One of the
Right.
greatest music forms of all time that has permeated the entire world, hip hop, created by Black Americans.
Mm-hmm.
So, when you think about like the jazz and blues, for instance, you Black people didn't invent the trumpet or the
Nope.
saxophone. You know, we didn't invent those instruments. Those were made by Europeans. But like with anything that we're given or that we take, we elevated it, right? And made
Right.
it something unique and better.
Yeah.
We'll take some crappy old, you know, rusted instrument, and make an entirely different art form with it. That's the legacy that we have. So when you talk about legacy characters and you
Yeah.
say, well, I don't support Jon Stewart because he's a legacy character, and I only support original Black characters that are created by original Black people. Well, you know what? We took a crappy
Character.
legacy character in Alan Scott or Hal Jordan, and you put a Black man in there with Black sensibilities,
Yeah.
and you elevate that character and you make him the most recognized and respected Green Lantern that there is.
Yeah. I
Right?
mean, you know,
You
it's
take the mantle of Spider-Man, who's been around for 70 years, and you make him a black Puerto Rican kid from Brooklyn, and you've got the most well-recognized Spider-Man that kids have today.
Yeah. I mean, it's no secret that we give things flavor. Isaac Hayes, one of our greatest musicians, one of my favorite musicians of all time, called it taking a song and bringing it down to Soulsville.
Yeah.
Meaning he could give it an interpretation. You talked about hip hop a while ago. You know, there's an old saying that, you know, hip hop didn't create anything, but it reinvented everything.
Right.
And think about this, man. I mean, guys were losing music programs in the inner cities. So guys took records that they had and began to, you know, get the breaks out of records and loop them and create new songs and give something that had an old element and adding dimensions to it, giving it gloss, if you will. Stuff like that. I you know, it's what we do. We take stuff and we make it ours.
That's exactly my point.
You know, so who else could have took a pig, looked at a pig's guts, and said, you know what, I can make something out of that.
From the rooter to the tutor.
From the root to the tutor, you know. That's all I got. What we got to eat. And Master done took the ribs. He done took the steak. He done took the hindquarters. All we got. So all we got is the chitlins, the guts, and the ears of the pig, and the feet. Cut it off. We gonna make pig's feet. We gonna make chitlins. We gonna make. It's what we do, and so. These are things that the Creator gave us to help us survive.
Right.
Our creativity, our ingenuity, our ability to take things and make life better. The iron and
who's watching this real quick, anybody who's watching this right now, do me a quick favor. Hit the like button. If you're not subscribed to us on YouTube or Twitter or Facebook, whatever you're watching us on, please subscribe. But at the very least, I want everyone who's watching right now, just hit the like button. It helps us out. Go ahead, man.
Arthur English is laughing at me. But I'm just serious, man. I'm looking at this whole thing and I'm like, you know, we look at these characters like say a Mr. Terrific, who you know, for the most part, it's like the third smartest person in the world, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And that's okay if you want to brag on that or whatever. I'm like, come on, bro. We are a people that, you know, that created science, mathematics,
astronomy,
all of these things. These are not foreign concepts to us. It's not. We're bragging and boasting about things that are ink and paper, and yet there are real people that do real things and create real things, and so it's amazing to me how we feel about certain things when that's all we've ever done is take stuff that ain't ours, and it's like comics. I tell people, look. They're never going to go into the business of making books for us because they're not in the business of making books for us. They're in the business of making books for themselves. They throw us a book every now and then and we're able to see certain things, right? But here's the problem with it. We're behind enemy lines, literally. Listen, we came through the back door. We snuck in the room while nobody was looking, or we were in the room. We was expected to clean up the room, and we decided to sit and stay and, you know, make ourselves comfortable. Everybody went home, and we just took what was on the floor, what was left, had our own conversation. That's all we did. That's what we do. It's you know, it's like Big Mom and them taking the scraps that they were given and making things work because we had to. Had no choice. Some idiots will say, "Would it be better if we'd did just like the people did in the you know in the book in the Black Panther movie?" And Killmonger says that just throw me overboard and let me drown in the water with the ancestors, and that because they knew it was better to die free than to live like a slave. That sounds real nice. When everything in you says survive, says to live, says to move, to have hope, to have dreams, to not just die. There's a group of people called the Tasmanians. And if you go to Australia, where the Tasmanians were, try to go find a Tasmanian. You can't, because they're gone. They're all gone. They're no longer around. In this country, there were over 700 dialects and languages spoken at one time. In America, over 700 languages and dialects spoken by the native people of this country. Where are they? They're gone. They died. Our people evolved. Our people became chameleons. Our people survived. It was as if you let some people tell it, it would have been better for us to just die than to live. Because we really are the representation of America's sin.
Mm-hmm.
We're not supposed to be here.
This is where that whole covering up with the getting rid of critical race theory BS is coming from.
All of it. And I told Rodney Barnes, I was like, you know what? I mean, he probably thought it was a small thing, but guess what? This might be the only way that story gets told. If they have their way, because guess what? We are so far from the critical points of America in terms of history to where they're comfortable in saying we don't need to read about that. We don't need to talk about that. And before you know it, you'll have kids that don't know who Malcolm X was. They'll have kids that don't know who Marcus Garvey was. They'll have kids that don't know who Frederick Douglass is. Because we're so far from it. It's like, okay, well, and shout out to Obama, but Black history does not begin with Obama. We got to stop that train before it starts. We need our people to know everything, which is why the whole milestone thing about these identical characters is jacked up, bro.
Yeah.
Because it was supposed to be a beautiful month where we would talk about these heroes and these historical heroes in the same stories.
Yeah.
How they messed that up.
How do you not get fired up to do that book?
Man, I don't know. I know I was upset when I first heard that it was being pushed back. I think I don't know. I ain't gonna say I was the only one that was mad, but I know I was very mad and nobody was really talking about it. Because it's like, bruh, it makes too much sense. Too much sense. Too much sense. You can't do something like that and not expect people to be excited. And then all of a sudden, in the 11th hour, literally in January, sorry guys, the book's not gonna come out to June. So guess what? That tells me that you knew in December that you weren't ready. That tells me that you knew in November you weren't ready, because it takes literally 90 days to put out a book. But you waited till the late January to tell us the book wasn't coming. Our thing that says, look at the Egyptians who made X-Men, made their movie from. Yeah, well, we still fussing about whether or not Apocalypse is black.
We got to add that to the site, by the way. There's a Apocalypse X-Men run, which shows that his, although he would think he was pretty much born blue, shows that his father was black.
I mean, I understand it. I mean, they don't want to. It's a lot to acknowledge other people when you're the dominant society. I think that my dad told me a long time ago that the Indian will not ever win the day until he writes his own story.
Yeah.
As long as the cowboy writes the story, the cowboy is going to always win, and they're no different.
It's an interesting question. Has there ever been a Western movie written from the Native Americans' perspective?
Not to my knowledge.
Not a popular one, right?
Yeah. I mean, bro, they could literally do a book called. They could literally do a series, the Trail of Tears. They could do that. Lord have mercy. I mean, you think about the Native Americans, the history of Native Americans in this country, and what they went through. I mean, these people used environmental, or I should say, not environmental, biological racism. I mean, they gave these people blankets laced with smallpox.
Yeah. This
is the kind of stuff that they were on. And so when you think about that, they literally, but they truly took to heart Machiavelli's book, The Prince, in that becoming a savage.
You could do a sci-fi movie or a book or a comic book, sci-fi genre, where you have aliens from outer space come to Earth, come to America, and say, you know what, we're going to colonize America. So we need all of you people to be pushed over out of the way onto some specific areas of the country. We'll call them reservations.
Mm-hmm.
And so all of you humans were going to be pushed to these areas. We're taking over. And these aliens brought diseases with them. And so the humans who are recognize that they're inferior technologically to these aliens and don't have the means to repel them, try to negotiate with the aliens. Well, what if you give us this amount of allocation of land? Sure, we'll give you that. Just move out of this area. And then the humans say, well, you promised us this area, but you only gave us a small fraction of it. Well, take what you get. Just be satisfied. We're not renegotiating the deal. Okay. And the humans are like, well, you guys are interfering with our affairs. We're humans. We don't want to eat, alien food or be governed by alien cultural idioms or be governed by alien rules. We want to be able to govern ourselves. Fine. We'll let you govern your area. Just stay in this little small quarter of this area we've given you. We'll let you govern yourselves. If they did a series like that to make people realize what Native Americans have gone through, and you wiped out 75% of the human population in the United States as part of that process, and you put it in this fantasy sci-fi type of thing, I would wonder how people would react to that. I mean, that's the great thing. That's always the thing I loved about like Star Trek and these sci-fi properties, is that they can look at these real life situations, put an alien face on it, and talk about real social problems out of in a context that makes you not have to like point fingers at any particular people, but talk about the story and talk about the concepts.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's most sci-fi stuff anyway. In my humble opinion, there's always this thought that, okay, well, if man discovers this, as he opens Pandora's box and, doing this and greed and, um, going places where they don't belong and whatnot. Let me ask you, have you ever watched a movie or a show called Cosmic Slop?
I've heard of that. That was like a black produced science
Yes,
fiction anthology series, right?
yes. And one of the chief stories in it is where these aliens come to Earth, and they, particularly, I guess it's America, I guess, they come to Earth, and they
Wasn't it like a
tell
Parliament
them.
Funkadelic type story?
Well, George Clinton did he was the narrator in the story.
That's what it
But
was.
what he did was is that these aliens came and said, we got all of these cures, and we're going to give you the cure to cancer. We're going to give you all of these, but you got to do one thing. We want
Get rid
all
of
the
the
black
black
people.
people.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
so
remember that.
I
I
want,
remember
I
that.
want, we want all the black people. And so they had to hold. They had a vote, and they voted the black people gone.
Yeah.
And and there was this campaign of what life would be like without black people, and all this at the other. Then of course you got the black people that were intermingled with the white people that were married to white people, and it was kind of hilarious, but at the same time it kind of give you pause to think. And stories like that, they are what they are, man.
I gotta look
So
that up and see if I can rewatch that. I haven't
yeah,
seen
you
that
can
since it first
actually
came.
you can find it on YouTube. You can find it on YouTube. It's on
Yeah,
YouTube.
I'm gonna look that up.
Yeah, and you know, it's things like that though. As far as you think about the what is it? Weird Science, weird fantasy 18,
Yeah.
the astronaut. Stories like that. Gene Roddenberry, which of course who helped create Star Trek, or was responsible for that, and a lot of science fiction. Um, so funny. You brought up Planet of the Apes a little bit earlier, and that whole thing, and
Racist.
how
100% racist. You can't you
I'm gonna
can't
tell
tell me
you,
otherwise.
man. I will say this. I will say this. I'm someone that's easily amused, and in the remake of Planet of the Apes, at the very end of the end of the movie, they have the scene where Mark Wahlberg he comes back to, or he thinks he's going home. He gets quote unquote home, and he's in D.C. and so he gets out the ship or whatever, right? The cops they show up. Nobody knows that they're apes because they got helmets and stuff on, right? So they take their helmets off and they got the guns pointed at him, and he looks and he turns, and there's a picture of the lawgiver, which if you know anything about Planet of the Apes lore, the lawgiver was the one that helped civilize the apes. Okay, now they were at the Lincoln Memorial, or what was supposed to be quote unquote the Lincoln Memorial in the scene. And so you see him sitting there, the lawgiver sitting in a chair like Lincoln. And I laughed. I'm telling you, I laughed myself silly because I said to myself, wow, they just made Abe Lincoln a monkey. I guess I guess he's a monkey for freeing us. Well,
He got
emancipate the
he got
slave.
lumped in with this.
I laughed myself, bro. I was just like, wow, I can't believe that they actually did this. Now, of course, if you're not someone who knows history, You wouldn't make that connection. That Lincoln, who signed the Emancipation Proclamation that freed, quote unquote, the slaves, Africans, that they would put him in the position that he would be a liberator. But he wasn't their liberator, he was ours. It was funny. I just thought there was some irony in all of that. And the thing is,
I've always viewed Planet of the Apes as an allegory of a fear of the blackening of America. The fear of a black planet is Public Enemy labeled their album. That's what Planet of the Apes is the white people's fear of black people taking over. That's literally how I interpret it.
It's interesting though that the mythos of that.
Arthur English says, "I never looked at it that way." I've always, from the minute I saw it as a kid on television, I was like, "That's what this is all about."
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's one of those things, man. I mean, remember, if you don't go deeper with some of these things, you'll never really get out what they're also trying to say. Because here's the thing. Now you got to remember, at the end of the movie of the original Planet of the Apes, right? He's walking on the seashore, and the guy, Dr. Zayas, he tells him, he says, "Taylor, don't go. You may not like what you find." And he goes into what they call the quote unquote forbidden zone. And so, of course, we know that in the forbidden zone, he looks up and he recognizes that he's home. And he said, "Well, how do you know he's home?" He said, "Well, then you see a picture, it pans to the Statue of Liberty." And so he looks at it, he realizes that they blew up the planet. And that if they don't if the civilized world does not take care of things, that this is what they're looking for. So you're right, there is a fear of the black planet, because that's exactly what will happen if something like that was to happen. If civilized world as we know it was to disappear, it's going to go back.
What do you think these Klan members talk about in their meetings?
Oh, of course.
They're talking about, man, you don't want these monkeys and these apes to take over the world and take your women and take your jobs and make you, the white man, the slave. What is that? What is that literally the plot of? Planet of the Apes. That's literally what the Klan members talk about.
Yeah. Well,
when they're passing out their flyers, don't let these apes take over the world from you. Don't let them take your jobs and your women.
Well, here's the thing about that, though. They've already lost. And the reason I know that they've lost is because all of their resources, there are no more resources. All the resources that are in China and Africa. And the only way you get those resources out of China and Africa is that you have to submit to them. That's simple. Which is why China is in Africa right now trying to buy up all the land.
Everything.
Them idiots on the mother continent are letting them do it, which is, that's another issue. That's another story for another day. But that's the truth of things. Because we're talking about in terms of America today, this is a democracy that is not going to last. It's not built to last. It literally is the last days. Because if you continue to go down this road that you're going on, at some point, the Chinese in particularly are going to be like, you know what, we're going to need that bread that you've been borrowing from us for 20, 30 years now, and you haven't paid a cent on this bill. We need our money. It was like, what are you talking about? You know what I'm saying? We're going to pay you. It's at some point the Chinese are going to be like, no, I need that money. I need that bread.
Actually, China's more interested in accumulating so much debt that it'll be impossible to repay. And so they, in essence, own Africa.
Exactly. Africa, for the most part, has been so.
It has.
Um, a lot of people, I know Africans. A lot of Africans are going to China or taking courses learning how to speak Chinese because they recognize that the Chinese are that the Chinese are going to basically at some point be the world power.
They are the world power. We just don't
Yeah,
like to talk about it in the United States, but economically speaking, they're the world power.
yeah. And so, I think that when you talk about terms of Europe, like what's going on right now, bruh, that's not good for Europe. I'll say it like that. Um, how will America be affected by all of this? I hope and pray that Biden does not get a wild hair behind his butt with this because the last thing that America needs now is another war. Um, and that is a war you are not going to win.
No, you can't win a war against. Yeah. That's why Biden's for all the rhetoric, it's really just coming down to economic sanctions. There's no way the United States can engage in direct warfare with Russia and not have it escalate into a terrible situation.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, the war in Ukraine has nothing to do with Putin saying it used to be part of us. We want to join with our people and any of that foolishness. It has to do with the fact that Ukraine has a tremendous amount of natural resources, a tremendous amount of
Exactly.
natural resources.
Yep.
That's what Putin wants. Because when your competitor is China,
Yep.
You've got to find some other forms of resources. China's bought up all the natural resources.
Yep.
If they're not directly coming from China, China owns it.
Yep.
And Putin's trying to find forms of natural resources that are just on their border that they can get quick and easy. That's what this is about. That's all
Yep.
this is about.
But that's they're gonna sell it as something else though. Of course, they're trying to sell it as something else. It's weird because, and that's the thing about Europe. There's not a lot of resources, natural resources in Europe. The whole point of them going out, leaving the old world and going out to the new world, so was because there are limited resources in Europe. Um, it is what it is.
And definitely no
And
flavor.
no.
You gotta leave Europe to get your spices to get some flavor.
Yeah, man. And it is what it is. And so when you think about that, look at a movie like Star Wars, okay, or a franchise like Star Wars, who built its franchise on a political situation. Now, the funny thing is, we got Star Wars. Think about this for a moment. We got Star Wars Episode 4 first.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We knew that there was a thing called the Empire, but we didn't know why the Empire was the Empire.
Right.
We didn't get that until,
The prequels.
what? The prequels. That was it. We didn't get the political. But just imagine if we had gotten the prequels first. It's like, okay, we're going to talk about these systems and these trade routes and how we can't trade with this planet because this planet over here or these group of planets, see that as a conflict of interest. That's literally what Star Wars is about. Star Wars is about trade routes and about access. You throw some religion in it, which is we talk about the Force. You throw that in the mix, and you got the biggest franchise probably in the history of franchises in terms of entertainment. But just imagine if we had gotten all of that, the first part. I don't know if Star Wars would have been just as successful. Because you got to remember when Star Wars came out, which was 77.
Right.
We had come out of the Vietnam War. We had come out of, we come out of some jacked up stuff at the time. Disco was on. People wanted to party. People wanted to, you know what I'm saying? People wanted to kind of let their hair down, so to speak. People wanted to kind of take it easy. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Because you got to also remember too, come out the war. Black Panthers had been destroyed. There was a lot of tension prior to 77, 75, 74, all of that. The early 70s, you know what I'm saying? And then in the late 70s, you got disco. Things just got kind of like relaxed, if you will. But if you had a political theater like Star Wars come out, it might have been okay, but I don't know if it would have been as big as it would be. Because all we got in episode 4 was this adventure set to this classical music. Da-da-da-da-da-da. We see some guys with some lightsabers and sword, some lights, glowing sticks or whatever you want to call it like that. We really were just enamored with that story. And of course, it all boiled down to this this white kid from Tatooine, this backwater planet, you know what I'm saying? Which would be the, if he grew up somewhere like Nebraska or Akron or somewhere, you know what I'm saying? And taking on the big bad on a commercial level. But on a global or planet level, Luke Skywalker becomes this central figure or whatever, whose dad, we find out in the second movie, you know what I'm saying, is actually the one who helped start the Empire. We didn't get that story. We got this story like in the middle of it. And I think it was genius that George Lucas put it like that, because it was, Star Wars in and of itself is not a political treatise, but when you get the story, the full count of the story, that's exactly what it is. It's about oppression and oppressors, and so, I don't know. The haves and the have-nots at the end of the day, my brother.
You're going deep on me, man.
That's what happens, Arthur, when it's late and it's time to go to bed.
Yeah, man, I need to go to bed. Hey, look, brother, I appreciate you hanging out with me tonight. Everybody out there watching us, either live or in later recording. Thank you for watching. Please, as I said before, take a half a second and hit the like button. It helps us to keep doing what we're doing. On behalf of Black Comic Lords, Black Superheroes Forever, thank y'all. Be blessed. Be good to yourselves and to each other.
That's what's up. Peace.